It all began with a choice that seemed small but carried the weight of a storm. Her name was Amina, a 32-year-old woman whose gentle face carried the marks of quiet struggle. She was soft-spoken yet strong-willed, the kind of soul who endured hardships in silence rather than complain. But that day, in the middle of the crowded bazaar, she was pushed into a moment where her dignity and her survival collided. A shopkeeper sneered at her, refused her request, and mocked her poverty. The question rose like fire in her chest: should she swallow the insult quietly, or should she speak up, risking humiliation? If she stayed silent, what would that teach her children watching from the shadows? If she spoke out, what storm would her words unleash? And if her husband arrived, what would he do? The sunlight streamed through the narrow alleys of the old city bazaar, falling in golden stripes across stalls filled with spices, fruits, and cloth. The air was thick with a mixture of roasted corn, fried samosas, and the sharp tang of dust kicked up by hurried feet. Voices overlapped, vendors shouting prices, women bargaining fiercely, children darting between shops. It was the kind of place where life was loud, chaotic, and endlessly alive. Amina clutched the corner of her faded dupatta tightly as she moved through the market. Her eyes darted from stall to stall, measuring prices, searching for one shop where kindness still lived. In her hand she carried a small cloth purse, inside it only a few crumpled notes. It wasn't much, but it was all she had saved for the week, money that needed to buy rice, lentils, and maybe, if Allah willed, a little milk for her children. Her 2 young ones, a boy of 10 named Ali and a girl of 8 named Noor, followed closely behind. Their eyes, wide and bright despite their worn clothes, scanned the colorful stalls with quiet wonder. They had learned from their mother not to ask for treats. Still, the smell of roasted peanuts made Noor lick her lips unconsciously. Amina noticed but said nothing. She promised herself silently, one day, my children will walk through this market and buy whatever they want. One day. But that day was not today. She stopped at a shop selling rice and grains, a small place with sacks stacked neatly against the wall. Behind the counter stood Rashid, a man in his late 40s with a round belly, sharp eyes, and a mustache that twitched whenever he smirked. Rashid was known in the market not for kindness, but for arrogance. He sold to the rich with smiles, but to the poor he gave hard looks and harder words. Assalamu alaikum, Rashid bhai, Amina greeted softly, lowering her eyes with respect. Wa alaikum salam, Rashid replied lazily, barely glancing at her. He was busy counting a thick bundle of cash, his gold watch glinting in the light. I need 2 kilos of rice, and 1 kilo of lentils, Amina said carefully. Her voice trembled just slightly. Rashid's eyes flicked to her, then to the purse clutched in her hand. He snorted. You again? Always coming here with small money. Don't waste my time. Go to some other shop. Amina's face warmed with shame. She lowered her purse on the counter and unfolded the notes. I have enough, I counted. Please weigh it for me. But Rashid leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. This is not a charity house. My rice is for paying customers, not for people like you. Do you know how many big buyers come here daily? People who buy in sacks, not in 2 kilos like beggars. Ali clenched his small fists at his side, his young face hardening. Noor pressed her lips together, holding her mother's dupatta tighter. Amina swallowed the sting in her throat. I am not begging, Rashid bhai. I came to buy, just like anyone else. The shopkeeper leaned forward, his mustache twitching. Then bring real money. I don't break my stock for scraps. Do you think I built this shop to serve the poor? Get lost before I throw you out. The words cut deeper than a knife. The world around Amina blurred for a moment, voices, colors, the smell of spices, all drowned by the pounding of her heart. She could feel the eyes of other customers turning toward her, some with pity, some with hidden judgment. Her children were watching. This was the moment. Should she quietly leave, protecting her pride but accepting defeat? Or should she answer back, teaching her children to never let injustice pass unanswered? Before she could decide, a voice came from behind her. Amina? She turned, and her heart skipped. Standing a few steps away was her husband, Hassan. He was tall, lean, with a rugged face browned by years of outdoor labor. His clothes were simple, his shoes dusty, but his eyes, sharp and steady, carried a quiet fire. Hassan was a man who rarely raised his voice, but when he did, people listened. He worked long hours as a mason, carrying heavy stones, sweating under the sun, and yet he always carried himself with dignity. Seeing him, Amina's breath caught. He had arrived at the very moment she prayed he wouldn't. Because now, everything would change. Hassan's gaze moved from his wife's trembling hands to Rashid's smug face. He understood in an instant. His jaw tightened. The children rushed to him, Ali grabbing his father's arm, Noor hiding behind his leg. Baba, Ali whispered, his voice shaking with anger, this man insulted Ami. He won't sell us food. For a long moment, silence spread around the shop. Even other customers leaned closer, sensing the storm brewing. Hassan stepped forward slowly, his footsteps deliberate, his eyes locked on Rashid. Amina's heart raced. She knew her husband's nature, calm until pushed too far. Would he stay silent to avoid trouble? Or would he fight, risking more humiliation or worse? Rashid leaned back casually, smirking. Ah, Hassan. I was just telling your wife. She should shop elsewhere. My rice is not for. He paused deliberately, his smile cruel. People like you. The insult hung heavy in the air. Amina gripped Hassan's sleeve, whispering urgently, let it go. Please. Let's just go. But Hassan didn't move. His eyes, hard as stone, never left Rashid's. His hand, rough and calloused, gently moved Amina's aside. He spoke slowly, his voice low but carrying weight. Are you refusing to sell food to my family? Rashid chuckled. Yes. And what will you do about it? The crowd shifted uneasily. Children peered from behind their mothers, men folded their arms, waiting for the clash. The air grew heavy, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Amina's chest tightened. She prayed her husband would walk away. She prayed he wouldn't. Because in that moment, whatever choice Hassan made, would change everything. The market air grew heavier with every heartbeat. Hassan stood in front of Rashid's counter, his jaw set like stone, his hands rough from years of labor curling into fists at his sides. The shopkeeper leaned lazily back, smirking as though he had already won the battle. Amina stood a few steps behind, her dupatta pulled tightly across her chest, silently begging her husband with her eyes to let the insult pass. But Hassan's silence wasn't surrender, it was calculation. The crowd had gathered quickly. Women carrying vegetable bags paused to watch, men stopped mid-bargain, and children climbed sacks of flour for a better view. In this old bazaar, drama was as common as dust, but this was different. It wasn't just about rice. It was about dignity, and everyone knew it. Finally, Hassan's voice cut through the tension. Calm. Controlled. Yet sharp as a blade. You refuse to sell food to my wife. To my children. Tell me, Rashid, do you call that justice? Do you call that trade? Rashid let out a loud laugh, drawing attention to himself. Justice? Trade? Don't give me speeches, Hassan. I run this shop, not you. I decide who I sell to. And I don't sell to people who bring coins like beggars. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hassan's eyes never wavered. He stepped closer to the counter, his voice steady. You think poverty is shameful? That feeding your family with what little you earn is a crime. Rashid raised his voice, taunting. It is shameful. A man who cannot feed his wife and children properly has no honor. Why should I waste my rice on them when there are customers who can pay in full? Ali's young face flushed red. Don't talk about my Baba like that, he burst out, stepping forward. Hassan immediately placed a protective hand in front of his son, pulling him back gently. He would take the insult, but he would never let his children fight his battles. His eyes, however, burned hotter. The crowd was whispering now. Some agreed with Rashid's cruelty, others shook their heads in disgust. One old man muttered, today he insults them, tomorrow it could be any of us. The breaking point. Hassan's voice dropped lower, quieter, but it carried more power than a shout. You will sell me rice and lentils. And you will do it with respect. Because food is not yours, Rashid. It is Allah's rizq, and He decides who eats, not you. The words silenced even the whispering crowd. For a moment, Rashid's smirk faltered. But arrogance is stubborn. He slammed his palm on the counter. I said no. Get out of my shop before I throw you out myself. Amina gasped softly, her hand tightening on Hassan's arm. Noor clung to her mother's side, frightened. For Hassan, that was enough. He had given Rashid a chance to show decency, but now, his patience snapped. In one swift motion, Hassan leaned across the counter, grabbed a handful of rice from the nearest sack, and let the grains fall slowly, deliberately, back into the sack. His eyes locked onto Rashid's. Even if you refuse, my family will eat. And if you want to stop me, Rashid, try. The market froze. Rashid's face turned crimson with rage. He shot up from his chair, ready to shove Hassan back. But before his hand could rise, another voice thundered across the bazaar. Enough! The unexpected arrival. The crowd parted as a figure approached, a tall man in a crisp white shalwar kameez, with polished shoes and a voice of command. It was Javed Malik, the market committee leader. His presence alone carried weight. He was known for settling disputes, though his loyalties often leaned toward those with money. What's happening here? Javed demanded, his sharp eyes moving between Hassan and Rashid. Rashid quickly pointed at Hassan. This man is stealing from my shop. I refused to sell, and he forced his way. Gasps filled the crowd. Stealing, some whispered. A few looked at Hassan with doubt, others with sympathy. Hassan's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Amina stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her courage pushed through. That's a lie. My husband never stole. We came to buy with what little money we had. Rashid insulted us, mocked us in front of everyone, and refused to sell. My husband only defended our honor. The crowd buzzed louder. Rashid barked back, honor? Then tell your husband to earn like a man instead of crawling here with pennies. Ali shouted, my Baba works harder than you ever will. His small voice cracked with anger. Hassan finally raised his hand, silencing his family. He looked Javed straight in the eye. Decide, Malik Sahab. Will you stand for truth or for the rich man's lies? The bazaar held its breath. A dangerous decision. Javed Malik hesitated. His eyes flicked to Rashid, the man who donated heavily to the committee, who kept the markets running with his influence. Then to Hassan, the laborer with no wealth, only dignity. Truth is truth, Javed finally said, his voice heavy. And food is a right. Rashid, you cannot refuse to sell in this way. The crowd murmured in approval. Amina's shoulders eased with relief. Hassan nodded, satisfied. But Rashid's fury only deepened. His pride was wounded in public. His eyes burned with vengeance as he spat, fine. Take your rice. But remember this, Hassan, you've made an enemy today. And enemies like me don't forgive easily. He scooped rice and lentils with jerky motions, slamming them into a bag, and tossed it across the counter. Hassan caught it firmly, his expression unreadable. He placed the crumpled notes on the counter, every rupee accounted for, and turned to leave with his family. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring about what they had witnessed. Some admired Hassan's courage, others feared the consequences of crossing a man like Rashid. But as Amina walked beside her husband, clutching the bag of food, her heart was heavy. She knew Rashid wasn't bluffing. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. At home. Later that evening, in their small two-room home on the edge of the city, the atmosphere was quiet. The children sat eating simple rice with lentils, their eyes still wide from the day's events. Amina served them silently, her face thoughtful. Hassan sat on the floor, his back against the wall, eating slowly. His hands were steady, but his mind was not. Amina finally spoke. You should have let it go. Rashid is not a man who forgets insults. He will make trouble for us. Hassan's eyes lifted to hers, calm but firm. If I let it go today, what would Ali and Noor learn? That their parents can be insulted in public and we bow our heads? No, Amina. Poverty is hard, but losing dignity is death. Her eyes glistened. She admired his strength, but fear gnawed at her heart. She reached for his hand. Then promise me you'll be careful. Rashid has money, power, and friends. We only have each other. Hassan squeezed her hand gently. And that is enough. Trust me. The storm gathers. The next morning, when Hassan left for work at the construction site, whispers had already spread. In the tea stalls, in the alleyways, people talked of the showdown in the market. Some praised his courage. Others shook their heads. And Rashid, his humiliation burned deeper each time he heard the story retold. By noon, Rashid sat in the back of his shop, speaking in low tones with two men rough-looking, with sharp eyes and heavy hands. One of them cracked his knuckles. You want us to send a message? One asked. Rashid's mustache twitched with a cruel smile. Not yet. First, I will destroy his name. Then, we will see. That evening, when Hassan returned home, his children rushed to him, excited. Baba! We heard people talking, you were so brave. Noor exclaimed, hugging his leg. Hassan smiled faintly, patting her head. Bravery is not for praise, Noor. It is for doing what is right. But even as he said it, a knock came at the door. Amina opened it and froze. Standing there were two policemen. Are you Hassan? One of them asked sharply. Yes, Hassan answered, stepping forward. You're under complaint. Shopkeeper Rashid has accused you of theft and public disturbance. Amina gasped. The children clung to her. Hassan's jaw clenched, but he did not resist as the officers took his arm. Baba! Ali cried out. Stay strong, Hassan told his son firmly. He turned to Amina, his eyes steady even in the storm. Take care of the children. I will return. And with that, they led him away. Amina's knees nearly buckled. She held the doorframe, her heart pounding. Rashid's revenge had begun. The night in the small neighborhood was unusually silent. Amina sat on the thin mat in their modest home, her dupatta pulled tightly around her shoulders though the air was warm. Ali and Noor had finally cried themselves to sleep, their little faces still damp with tears, curled up close to her as though afraid their father might vanish from their dreams too. But Amina couldn't sleep. Her eyes were swollen, her hands trembling in her lap. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the policeman's rough hands on Hassan's arm, heard Rashid's smug voice whispering lies, felt the sharp crack of injustice. She whispered a prayer, her voice breaking. Ya Allah, protect him. Give me courage. Show me a way. At the police station. Meanwhile, Hassan sat on a hard wooden bench in a dim cell at the local thana. The walls were cracked, the air thick with the smell of sweat, rust, and stale tobacco. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting shadows that stretched and shifted like restless spirits. Two other men shared the cell, petty thieves who eyed him curiously but said nothing. Hassan sat straight, his face calm, though his wrists ached from the handcuffs. He wasn't afraid of the darkness or the bars. What cut deepest was knowing his wife and children were suffering at home, alone. A constable appeared at the bars, tapping his stick against the iron. Hassan, Rashid Sahib has filed an FIR against you. Theft. Public disturbance. Assault. Hassan's jaw tightened. All lies. The constable shrugged. Lies or truth, it doesn't matter. Rashid Sahib has friends. Unless someone speaks for you, you could rot here. Hassan leaned forward, gripping the bars. His voice was steady, but it carried steel. I am not afraid of jail. But I will not let a liar destroy my family's honor. Tell Rashid Hassan does not bow. The constable chuckled and walked away. But in the shadows, another figure had been listening. A man with weary eyes, a long beard streaked with gray, sitting silently on a corner bench. When the constable left, he leaned forward. You have courage, he said softly. But courage alone doesn't fight men like Rashid. Hassan looked at him curiously. And who are you? The man gave a bitter smile. Once, I was like you. Spoke the truth, stood against men with money. Now, I have been here for months. Forgotten. He lowered his voice. If you want to survive, you need allies outside. Your wife, she must not stay silent. Hassan's heart clenched. Amina. She was gentle, quiet. But he also knew, when pushed to the edge, she could be stronger than anyone. Amina's decision. The next morning, Amina tied her dupatta firmly, wiped her tears, and looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror. She was tired, but her eyes had a new fire. Her children watched her silently, sensing the change. Ami, where are you going? Noor whispered. Amina knelt, kissing her daughter's forehead. To bring your Baba back. Ali straightened, trying to be brave. We'll take care of Noor. Don't worry. Her heart swelled with pride and sorrow. She hugged them both tightly, then stepped out into the dusty morning streets. She didn't know exactly where to begin, but she knew one thing: silence would only destroy them. She had to speak. She had to fight. The market's gossip. When Amina walked back into the bazaar, whispers followed her. Women at stalls glanced her way, men looked at her with curiosity, some with pity. Everyone had heard Hassan arrested, Rashid's complaint. One woman selling vegetables shook her head. Poor soul. She'll never win against Rashid. Another muttered, still, did you see Hassan yesterday? Brave man. I wish my husband had such courage. But most kept their distance. People feared Rashid's influence too much to get involved. Amina walked straight to Javed Malik's shop. He was sipping tea, discussing rates with two traders. When he saw her, his brow furrowed. Amina? Why are you here? She clasped her hands tightly. Malik Sahib, you were there yesterday. You saw the truth. My husband did not steal. You told Rashid he was wrong. Then why is my husband in jail today? Javed shifted uncomfortably. The traders looked at him with curiosity. He cleared his throat. Amina, I said what was right in public. But the police, they listen to money, not words. My hands are tied. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice grew sharper. Your hands are not tied, Malik Sahib. Your conscience is. You are the leader of this market. If you cannot stand for truth now, then what good is your position? The traders murmured in surprise at her boldness. Malik's face reddened. He waved her off. Enough. Go home, woman. I can't help you. Amina's heart sank, but she lifted her chin. If you will not help, someone else will. But remember, Malik Sahib, truth cannot be buried forever. She turned and walked away, her back straight. An unexpected friend. As she left, a young boy tugged her dupatta. Baji, wait. It was Sajid, the son of a fruit seller who had watched the incident yesterday. He looked around nervously before whispering, my father said Rashid gave money to the police last night. That's why they arrested Hassan Chacha. Amina's eyes widened. Are you sure? Sajid nodded. I heard him say it myself. My father doesn't like Rashid, but he's scared of him. Everyone is. Amina placed a trembling hand on the boy's head. Allah bless you, Beta. You've told me what I needed to know. She now had proof, if only whispers, that Rashid had bribed the police. But who would believe her? As she walked, she noticed an old man sitting at the corner tea stall, the same man who had spoken yesterday during the argument, muttering that injustice today could reach anyone tomorrow. His name was Chacha Karim, a respected elder who had lived in the neighborhood all his life. He called out to her softly. Daughter, come sit. She obeyed. His eyes, clouded with age but sharp with wisdom, studied her. You are walking a hard path. Rashid is not just a shopkeeper. He lends money to half this bazaar. Many owe him. That is why they stay silent. Amina swallowed. Then what can I do? Chacha Karim leaned closer. Go to the press. A journalist comes here sometimes, his name is Imran. He writes stories about corruption. If he hears your voice, the whole city could hear it too. Amina's heart raced. The press? She had never spoken to a journalist in her life. But what choice did she have? Hassan in custody. Back in the cell, Hassan sat silently, his mind on his wife and children. The gray-bearded prisoner beside him spoke again. You trust your wife? With my life, Hassan answered without hesitation. The man nodded slowly. Then perhaps you will not be forgotten. Moments later, Rashid himself entered the station, swaggering in with his gold watch flashing. He tossed a packet of sweets onto the inspector's desk. For you, Sahib. A small gift. Keep that laborer locked until he learns his place. The inspector grinned. Consider it done. From inside the cell, Hassan watched. His chest burned, but he said nothing. Rashid turned toward him, smirking. Enjoy your stay, Hassan. By the time you're out, your family will learn what happens when poor men try to act big. Hassan gripped the bars, his knuckles white. The poor may be weak in wealth, Rashid. But not in faith. Remember this, the one who humiliates others never dies with honor. For the first time, Rashid's smile faltered. He turned sharply and left. The next day, Amina asked around until she finally found the small office of Imran, the young journalist Chacha Karim had mentioned. It was nothing grand, just a room above a printing shop, papers scattered, an old fan creaking overhead. Imran looked up from his typewriter, surprised to see her. Yes, sister? What brings you here? Her voice trembled, but she steadied it. My husband has been jailed on false charges. A shopkeeper named Rashid bribed the police. Please, write our story. Imran leaned back, studying her. Do you have proof? She hesitated. Only witnesses. Only whispers. He sighed. Without proof, it's risky. Rashid has power. If I publish without evidence, they'll shut me down. Tears welled in Amina's eyes. Then what hope do we have? If no one speaks, Rashid will crush us. Imran's gaze softened. He saw the desperation, the courage in her eyes. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Sometimes, a single voice can start a fire. If you're willing to speak on record, with your name, your face, I'll write it. But know this, once the story is out, Rashid will come after you harder. Amina's heart pounded. Her whole body trembled. But then she thought of Hassan's steady eyes, of Ali and Noor's innocent faces. She lifted her chin. Write it. Use my name. I will not be silent. Imran nodded slowly. Then let's begin. The pen scratched across the paper as Amina poured out everything, the insult in the shop, Rashid's refusal, the public humiliation, the bribery, the arrest. Her voice wavered, but each word was like a stone thrown into still water, rippling outward. When she finished, Imran looked at her with new respect. You are braver than most men I've met. This story will be printed tomorrow. Amina closed her eyes briefly, whispering a silent prayer. But outside the office, in the narrow street, a shadowy figure had been watching. One of Rashid's men leaned against a wall, chewing pan, a cruel smile forming on his lips as he saw Amina leave. He spat the red juice onto the ground and muttered, Rashid will want to hear this. The morning sun rose over the city, painting the rooftops with gold, but for Amina it felt like the light carried both hope and fear. She stood outside the small printing shop where Imran worked, her hands trembling as she clutched the folded newspaper he had given her. On the front page, in bold letters, was her story. Her name. Her husband's name. And Rashid's name. People in the bazaar were already reading it. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others whispered in hushed tones. So it's true? Rashid bribed the police, one man muttered. I always knew he was crooked, said another. For the first time, Rashid's arrogance was questioned openly. But while some voices rose in support, others lowered in fear. Careful, warned an old shopkeeper. Rashid won't take this quietly. That woman has put her whole family in danger. Amina walked through the marketplace with her head high, though inside her heart raced like a drum. She saw women glance at her with admiration, men nod slightly in respect. Her children walked proudly beside her, Ali holding her hand tightly, nor clutching the newspaper. Meanwhile, Rashid sat in his shop, his face dark with fury. The newspaper lay crumpled on the counter, its ink smudged where his fingers had dug into the paper. Around him, his loyal men shifted uneasily, waiting for his command. Rashid's mustache twitched as he finally spoke. They dare humiliate me in print. That journalist, that woman, they think truth can protect them. Let them learn the price of crossing me. At the police station, Hassan sat in the dim cell, unaware of the newspaper but sensing something had changed. The constables were quieter today, some even glancing at him with discomfort instead of mockery. He overheard one whisper, "Did you see? His wife gave an interview. Rashid's name is all over it." Hassan's heart swelled with pride and worry together. Amina had found her courage. But what would Rashid do now? By afternoon, the bazaar was alive with arguments. Groups of men gathered at tea stalls, debating the article. Some called for justice, others urged silence. Rashid's influence had begun to crack, but cracks in stone often cause earthquakes. Amina returned home, her children beside her, but the air around the house felt heavy. She sensed eyes watching from alleys, footsteps lingering longer than usual. That evening, a loud knock thundered on her door. Amina froze, her pulse racing. Ali jumped, nor clutched her dupatta. Slowly, Amina opened the door and found two of Rashid's men standing there, their expressions cold. One leaned closer, his breath carrying the smell of pawn. "Baji, you've made a mistake. Tear up that newspaper, take back your words. Or else," his eyes slid toward the children, his smile cruel. Amina's voice trembled, but she did not step back. "Tell Rashid I will not be silent. If he fears the truth, that is his weakness, not mine." She shut the door firmly, her hands shaking. Inside, her children stared at her with wide eyes. Ali whispered, "Ami, what if they hurt Baba? What if they hurt us?" Amina pulled them close, her tears falling silently. "Allah is with us, Beta. And your Baba is strong. We will not break." In the shadows across the street, the two men lingered, watching the small house. One spat on the ground. "She has fire. Rashid won't like this. Tonight, we teach them fear." As night fell, the city grew quiet, but in the darkness, footsteps approached Hassan's home. A stone clattered against the wall, followed by another, then a third. Noor screamed, Ali rushed to the window, but Amina pulled them back. From outside came laughter, cruel, mocking. Then, suddenly, smoke. A bundle of cloth, burning at the edges, was thrown into the courtyard. Flames licked the dry ground, sparks rising. Amina cried out, grabbing a bucket of water, dousing the fire before it spread. The children coughed, their eyes stinging with smoke. From outside, Rashid's men shouted, "Next time, it won't be your courtyard, it will be your roof." Their footsteps faded into the night, leaving behind the smell of ash and fear. Amina sat trembling, holding her children, the water still dripping from her hands. Her heart pounded as she whispered, "Ya Allah, give me strength. I will not let them break us. Hassan must come home. He must." And at that very moment, in the jail cell, Hassan lifted his head, as though he had heard her prayer across the miles. He clenched his fists and whispered to himself, "I am coming back. No wall, no lie, no Rashid can keep me from them." But outside, Rashid was already planning his next move, something darker, something that would shake not just Amina's family, but the whole market. The night had been long and restless. Amina sat on the thin mat in her small living room, her children asleep beside her, yet her mind raced. Every sound outside, a creaking shutter, a distant dog bark, a passing cart, made her flinch. she knew Rashid would not stop with just threats. His pride, his ego, demanded action, and she had seen enough of him to know he would escalate. By dawn, a heavy silence had settled over the neighborhood. The burnt smell of the previous night's fire still lingered. Amina cleaned the small courtyard carefully, her hands shaking but determined. Ali helped her silently, his small hands careful as he swept the ash. Noor held onto her mother, whispering, "Ami, I'm scared." Amina knelt and held her close. "I know, Beta. But fear is only for those who give up. We do not give up." At the police station, Hassan was pacing the small cell. His wrists ached from the handcuffs, and his stomach growled from the meager meal given to prisoners. Every moment, his mind returned to his family, Amina, Ali, Noor. The thought of Rashid's men threatening them twisted his stomach with anger. He had stood for dignity once, but now the stakes had risen. A constable brought him a small plate of lentils and rice. Hassan ate slowly, carefully, his mind working faster than his hands. He overheard other prisoners whispering about Rashid's men in the neighborhood, about how the shopkeeper's wrath could extend far beyond the market. Hassan's jaw tightened. "If they touch my family, the price they pay will be more than they can imagine," he muttered under his breath. Meanwhile, Amina decided she could not sit idly. She went back to the small office of Imran, the journalist, hoping for guidance. Imran had printed her story the previous day, and it had already spread across the city. But now, with Rashid clearly plotting retaliation, she needed a strategy. "Baji," Imran said as she entered, "I heard about the fire last night. Are you safe?" Amina shook her head, tears threatening. "Imran Bhai, they are not done. Rashid's men are watching us. They tried to burn our courtyard. Hassan is in jail, and what can I do alone?" Imran leaned back, his face serious. "Alone, you may feel weak. But truth has power. We can organize witnesses, neighbors, anyone who saw Rashid's lies. If we present this evidence, we can pressure the police to release Hassan. But you will have to be brave. Very brave." Amina took a deep breath. "I am not afraid of Rashid, nor his lies. I will do whatever it takes to bring Hassan home." That afternoon, she went door to door in the neighborhood, speaking quietly with shopkeepers and neighbors. At first, most were afraid, glancing nervously at her and then at empty streets as if Rashid's men could appear at any moment. But Amina's courage was contagious. Slowly, people began sharing what they knew: small acts, conversations, sightings of Rashid bribing policemen. Each detail was another thread in a web of truth. By evening, she returned to Imran's office with a bundle of testimony, scribbled on scraps of paper and in small notebooks. Imran examined each carefully. "Baji," he said finally, "this is enough to expose Rashid. If the police are honest, Hassan will be released tomorrow. But you need to stay hidden tonight. His men will be watching." Amina nodded, worry etched across her face. "I will hide. But I cannot stop. Not until Hassan is home." That night, Rashid's fury boiled. He could not believe that the newspaper, the neighbors, and now even Imran had turned against him. He called his loyal men into the shop. "They think they can humiliate me," he spat. "They think a woman and a journalist can make me bend? Tonight, we remind them of their place. Find Hassan's family. Make them regret ever speaking." His men nodded, grim and silent. Outside, shadows moved through the alleys, watching the house where Amina and the children hid. Inside, Amina sensed danger. She sat by the window, peering through the curtains. "We must be ready," she whispered to Ali and Noor. "Stay inside. Do not make a sound." Ali's small face was serious. "Ami, will Baba be okay?" Amina pressed a kiss to his forehead. "Inshallah. And we will bring him home soon." Meanwhile, at the police station, Hassan had grown restless. His hands were raw from the handcuffs, and he could not sit still. A constable approached. "Hassan, there's a complaint against Rashid's accusations. Some witnesses came forward today. The inspector will review it tonight." Hassan's heart leapt.
Tell me, does that mean I might be free?
The constable shrugged.
Depends on the inspector. And on Rashid. Hassan clenched his fists. Then we wait. And prepare for what comes next.
Late that night, as Amina huddled with her children in the small living room, the sound of footsteps outside grew louder.
Shadows moved across the walls.
She held Ali and Noor close, her hands trembling as she gripped a kitchen knife for protection. A sudden crash made her jump.
A window pane rattled as one of Rashid's men tried to break in. Amina's heart pounded. Run, she whispered to the children, but there was nowhere to go.
She remembered the bucket of water from the previous night and had filled another, ready to douse fire if needed.
The man's silhouette loomed in the dim light. Amina took a deep breath and threw the water at him.
The figure screamed, slipping back into the shadows.
Another crash followed, then footsteps retreating. Amina sank to the floor, hugging her children. We are safe, for now.
At dawn, news of Rashid's failed attack spread quietly. Neighbors had seen the men lurking, fleeing after the water splashed.
Murmurs of support for Amina began to grow stronger.
People realized that Rashid's power was not absolute. Courage, even from one woman, could spark resistance.
By mid-morning, Imran called Amina.
Baji, the inspector has reviewed the statements.
Hassan will be released today.
But be careful, Rashid won't accept this lightly.
Amina felt a surge of hope.
Tears filled her eyes.
Thank you, Imran Bhai. Allah will reward you.
At the police station, Hassan's heart raced as the handcuffs were removed. He rubbed his wrists and stepped out into the sunlight. Freedom smelled of dust and sweat and, most of all, victory. His eyes searched for Amina. When he returned home, Amina ran to him, Ali and Noor following close behind. Hassan gathered his family in his arms, holding them tight. I am home, he whispered. Amina rested her head against his chest, feeling the warmth and strength of his presence.
We are together again.
And we will not be afraid. But even as they celebrated, Rashid watched from a distance. His face darkened with hatred.
He would not forget.
He would not forgive. The war was not over. And in the shadows of the bazaar, a plan was already forming, one that would test Amina and Hassan in ways they could never imagine. The days after Hassan's release were quiet, almost too quiet. Amina tried to return to a sense of normalcy, cooking, cleaning, taking care of Ali and Noor, but every creak of the old house, every shadow in the alley, made her heart race. She had expected relief after Hassan came home, but Rashid's shadow still loomed over them like a storm cloud, heavy and unrelenting.
Hassan, too, felt the weight of their fragile peace.
He returned to work at the construction site, but his mind was never on the stones he carried or the walls he built. Instead, it was on the lurking threat of Rashid. That man's anger had been ignited publicly, and Hassan knew well that someone like Rashid did not forgive. He needed a plan, and quickly. Rashid, meanwhile, burned with rage. His humiliation in the newspaper, the failed fire attack, and the release of Hassan had struck at the very core of his pride. He could no longer rely on bribery or intimidation alone. Now, he needed to show power, to make fear rise in every corner of the neighborhood. One evening, he gathered his men in the back of his shop. Words will not bring Hassan down.
Threats will not bring him down. Tonight, we strike at his family. We remind everyone who controls this street.
No one defies Rashid and lives unpunished. The men nodded, their eyes cold and cruel.
One of them pulled a long iron rod from beneath his coat, tapping it menacingly on the wooden floor. What about the woman? He asked. Rashid's eyes narrowed. She dares speak?
She must learn the cost of courage.
Tonight, the family will feel my wrath. That night, Hassan and Amina were asleep, exhausted from the day.
The children rested between them, dreaming of sugarcane and mangoes, unaware of the danger creeping toward their home. Amina had insisted on double-locking the doors and windows, but even that seemed fragile against the brutality of men fueled by hatred. Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the quiet. Ali woke with a scream, and Noor's cries pierced the night. Amina's heart stopped. She threw open the curtain and saw men climbing the walls, breaking the courtyard gate, approaching their house. Hassan was awake in an instant, grabbing a heavy stick from the corner. "Stay behind me," he shouted, pulling his children close. His voice carried authority and fear all at once. The intruders moved with determination. One of them tried to push the door open, and Hassan swung the stick, hitting him squarely. The man staggered but recovered, and soon there were multiple men at the door, shouting and banging, trying to break in. Amina grabbed a kitchen knife, standing beside her husband. Her hands shook, but she did not back down. Ali and Noor huddled behind Hassan, their small bodies pressed against his legs. The attackers were ruthless, but Hassan was stronger than they expected. Blow after blow, he defended his home, swinging the stick with precision. The children screamed, Amina shouted, and the chaos in the small house was deafening. One of Rashid's men finally threw a small firecracker inside the courtyard. It exploded with a deafening bang, sending smoke and sparks across the floor. Amina cried out and grabbed Noor, dragging her behind Hassan. The children coughed, eyes watering, fear gripping them. Hassan's voice cut through the smoke. "Run to the street. Get to safety." Ali hesitated, looking at his father. Hassan grabbed his hand firmly. "Now. Don't look back." Amina held Noor tightly and followed Ali into the narrow alleyway behind the house. The intruders were momentarily distracted by the fire, and they ran as fast as they could, gasping for air, hearts pounding. In the alley, neighbors had begun to emerge, attracted by the noise and chaos. Some shouted at Rashid's men, waving sticks and shouting curses. Others ran to alert the authorities. The fire from the courtyard illuminated the scene, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. Rashid's men hesitated, realizing the fight was not going to be easy. They looked at their leader, who was shouting angrily, gesturing wildly. "Finish this. No one helps them. Bring them down." But the neighbors were now joining in, emboldened by the display of courage from Amina and Hassan. Stones flew, sticks swung, and the night became a battlefield in the narrow streets. Hassan fought his way back into the house to protect his family, his muscles burning with exhaustion, his lungs heaving. He managed to push a few men back, sealing the courtyard gate just enough to prevent them from entering fully. Amina, trembling but determined, grabbed the remaining water from the bucket and threw it at the men who had re-entered the yard. Smoke and sparks filled the air as fire met water, and the attackers staggered, cursing. By the time the first police patrol arrived, called by frightened neighbors, Rashid's men had scattered. They melted into the darkness, leaving behind a burnt gate, broken shutters, and the scent of fear. Hassan collapsed on the floor, catching his breath, his arms around his children. Amina knelt beside him, shaking with relief and exhaustion. "We survived," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We survived." Hassan held her close. "Yes, but this is not over. Rashid will come back. He always does." Amina nodded, gripping his hand. "Then we will be ready. Together. Always together." The next day, the neighborhood was buzzing. The story of Rashid's attack spread quickly. People whispered about the bravery of Hassan and Amina, the courage of a woman who refused to be silent, and the man who defended his family with sheer strength and love. Even Javed Malik, the market leader, appeared at their home that morning. He had a grave expression. "I heard what happened last night. Rashid has lost control of the street. People are starting to question him. But you've made him dangerous. Be careful." Amina nodded, her eyes steady. "We are careful. But we will not be afraid. We cannot be afraid." Rashid, on the other hand, was plotting harder than ever. The failure of the attack only fueled his obsession with revenge. He sat in his office, drawing up new plans, speaking to men who were more ruthless than ever. "This is not enough," he said, grinding his teeth. "They humiliate me, resist me, and survive? No. Tonight, we take everything. The house, the family, the children. And when Hassan sees what happens, he will beg for mercy, and I will show him none." Inside the small home of Hassan and Amina, life continued under a veil of tension. The children played quietly, aware that the streets outside held dangers they could not fully understand.
Hassan and Amina spoke in low voices, planning ways to protect the family and gathering whatever allies they could trust.
Amina could feel her courage growing with every passing day, but so did the fear that Rashid's next move would be deadlier, more cunning. She knew the battles ahead would test every ounce of strength, faith, and love they possessed. The morning air was heavy with unease. Even the birds seemed quieter, and the usual chatter of the bazaar was muted, as if the city itself sensed the storm approaching.
Amina could feel it in her bones.
Every creak of the house, every passing shadow on the wall, made her grip Ali and Noor a little tighter. Hassan, though physically free now, felt the weight of vigilance pressing down on him. Every trip to the market, every visit to work, required careful calculation. Rashid was no ordinary adversary, he was a man scorned, a man who thrived on control and feared humiliation above all else.
Hassan knew that this confrontation would not end with mere threats, it would escalate, and soon.
Rashid, meanwhile, had already begun assembling his plan. He had called his most trusted and ruthless men to the back of his shop, laying out a map of the neighborhood with small stones representing houses, marking Hassan's home with a red stone.
"We failed before," he growled, slamming a fist onto the table, making the stones jump. "But that was just a warning. Tonight, we take everything. The house, the family, the children. Hassan thinks he can humiliate me and survive?
Let him see what happens when Rashid rises in full fury." His men nodded in unison, their eyes gleaming with the thrill of violence.
"We strike at midnight," one of them said.
Quiet, swift, precise. Rashid leaned back, a cruel smile stretching across his face.
"Good. Let them sleep in false comfort.
When dawn comes, they will know fear." Inside the small house, Amina prepared dinner quietly, her movements precise, but her mind was elsewhere.
She could sense the tension building, the invisible threat pressing on them.
Hassan had reinforced the doors and windows, had moved furniture to block potential entry points, and had taught the children how to stay silent at the first sign of danger.
Ali watched his father intently as Hassan checked the locks again. "Baba, do you think they'll come tonight?"
Hassan looked down at him, his eyes serious.
"I don't know, Beta. But we must always be ready. Courage is not only in fighting, it's in being prepared when danger comes to your door."
Noor clung to Amina's side, her small fingers entwined in her mother's hand.
"Ammi, I'm scared," she whispered. Amina knelt and held her daughter close. "I know, Beta. But we have each other. And we will face whatever comes together. Always together."
The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the narrow streets.
The neighborhood seemed almost deserted, though Hassan knew that Rashid's men were out there, waiting, watching, planning.
The family ate a quick dinner in silence, hearts pounding, eyes flicking toward every sound. As the clock in the nearby mosque struck 11, Hassan and Amina moved the children to the safest corner of the house, away from windows and doors. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock the calm before the storm.
Midnight arrived with a deathly silence.
Then, suddenly, a faint creak in the courtyard made Hassan's head snap up.
His hands gripped a heavy stick, muscles tense.
The children huddled behind him, wide-eyed, silent. From the darkness, figures moved swiftly, Rashid's men, attempting to breach the house again. This time, they were more organized, more determined. One smashed against the reinforced door, testing its strength. Hassan swung his stick with all his might, hitting a man squarely, sending him stumbling backward.
Amina, knife in hand, stood beside him, eyes fierce.
"You will not touch my family," she shouted. The men hesitated for a moment, surprised by her courage, but Rashid's plan had been executed countless times with ruthless efficiency before. They regrouped and struck again, this time breaking a side window. Shards of glass flew across the room, narrowly missing Ali, who screamed. Hassan swung again, cutting one man across the shoulder. Blood ran freely, and the intruder staggered back, cursing. Outside, the faint glow of a lantern revealed neighbors gathering, whispering and watching from behind walls and doorways. Some wanted to help, but fear kept them frozen. Others, emboldened by the defiance they saw, picked up sticks and stones, ready to intervene if necessary.
Hassan knew that this fight could not last long. His arms ached, adrenaline pumping, but he could not let Rashid's men reach the children. He made a decision. Amina, get the children out the back alley. Quickly.
Amina grabbed Ali and Noor, running silently toward the small passage behind the house. Hassan covered them, swinging and blocking with all his strength, moving like a man possessed. The attackers were ruthless, but he had strength fueled by desperation, love, and rage. As Amina guided the children through the alley, she heard a terrifying scream, Hassan's voice, strained, raw. Her heart froze. She ran faster, pulling the children along, praying they would reach safety. At the end of the alley, a small group of neighbors waited, some holding torches, others wielding sticks. They had come to help. Quick! Into the safe house, one of them shouted.
Amina and the children ran inside, collapsing behind locked doors, gasping for breath. Back at the house, Hassan fought tirelessly. Blow after blow, strike after strike, he held the intruders at bay. But there were too many.
One of Rashid's men lunged, hitting him hard across the shoulder. Pain exploded, but Hassan gritted his teeth and swung again.
He could not fail. Not now. Not ever.
Suddenly, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Someone had called the police, perhaps neighbors too frightened to intervene directly.
The attackers, realizing the risk, hesitated.
Hassan, sensing their uncertainty, pressed forward with one final, furious swing, sending them fleeing into the night. Hassan collapsed to the floor, bruised and bleeding, but victorious. He slumped against the wall, gasping, his chest heaving.
Amina emerged cautiously from the safe house, holding the children close.
Hassan staggered toward her, pain etched into every line of his face. She knelt beside him, touching his bruised cheek. "You fought so bravely, Baba," she whispered. Hassan smiled weakly, his fingers brushing her hair.
"We survived, together. That is what matters."
The children ran to their father, hugging him tightly, their little hands pressing against his chest. Tears streamed down Amina's face as she looked at her family, alive and together. For a moment, the world outside could wait. But the danger was far from over. Rashid, enraged at the failure of his most ruthless attack, was now plotting something even more sinister. His pride demanded vengeance, and he would not stop until Hassan and Amina were crushed completely. In the shadows, Rashid's men gathered once more.
"They escaped us," one said.
Rashid's eyes glinted in the lamplight, cruel and calculating.
"Escape? No.
They will not escape the storm I am about to bring. Tomorrow, they will learn that courage cannot save them from the wrath of Rashid." Inside the home, Hassan and Amina huddled together that night, their bodies pressed close, their minds racing. "We survived tonight," Hassan said softly, brushing a strand of hair from Amina's face. "But we must prepare. Rashid will return, and he will be smarter, stronger."
Amina nodded, holding him tightly.
"We will face him together. Always. And we will protect our children, no matter what comes." As the family slept finally, exhausted but alive, the shadows outside the house seemed to watch, waiting. Rashid's war was only beginning, and the next move would be deadlier than anything they had faced before. The morning air felt heavy, as though the city itself was holding its breath. Even the familiar sounds of the bazaar, the clatter of carts, the shouts of vendors, were subdued. Amina sensed the tension immediately, a prickling in her skin that made her uneasy.
Hassan noticed it too.
After the previous night's attack, both of them knew Rashid would not give up so easily. Hassan spent the day fortifying their home, moving furniture to block windows, reinforcing doors, and planning escape routes.
Amina helped quietly, but her mind was elsewhere, thinking of the children, thinking of the neighbors, thinking of what might come next.
Ali watched his father carefully, learning in silence. Noor clung to her mother, her eyes wide with worry. By evening, the family gathered for a simple meal, but the mood was tense. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside, made them flinch.
Hassan tried to speak calmly. "We survived the first attack. We must be ready, yes, but we cannot live in fear." Amina nodded, but inside she felt a storm brewing.
She knew Rashid would strike again, and this time it would be smarter, more dangerous.
As darkness fell, shadows moved through the alleys surrounding their home.
Rashid's men had planned carefully. This time, there would be no simple attack, no chance for neighbors to interfere. They carried ropes, knives, and clubs, moving silently, determined to terrorize Hassan's family and finally teach them a lesson in fear. Inside, Amina held Noor tightly while Ali sat close to Hassan. "We'll stay together, Beta," Hassan whispered.
"Whatever comes, we face it together." The clock struck midnight.
The first sound came not from outside, but from above, a heavy thud, followed by the scraping of shoes on the roof.
Amina's heart skipped a beat.
She realized immediately, Rashid's men had scaled the roof, intending to trap them inside. Hassan grabbed a stick and moved toward the window to look. "They're here," he muttered, voice low but firm.
"Get behind me."
The children clutched their parents, eyes wide with fear. Amina gripped a kitchen knife, shaking but resolute. "We will not be taken without a fight," she whispered.
The intruders began breaking through the roof boards, pieces of wood splintering and falling onto the floor.
Hassan swung the stick, hitting one man who tried to descend.
Sparks of panic and chaos filled the room.
Amina moved quickly, shoving a table to block the main entrance, but more men were coming down the stairs, forcing their way into the house.
Hassan swung relentlessly, but the numbers were overwhelming.
One man lunged at him from the side, and Hassan stumbled, narrowly keeping himself upright.
Amina realized that they could not hold out forever.
She grabbed Ali and Noor, dragging them toward the back exit, a narrow alley they had prepared earlier.
"Run!" Quickly, she shouted. Hassan covered their retreat, swinging and blocking the men with everything he had.
The room was filled with shouts, crashing wood, and the terrifying sounds of struggle. Hassan knew he could not leave his family behind, but he also knew he had to survive to protect them further. Amina and the children ran into the alley, coughing from dust and debris, hearts pounding. Neighbors had begun to notice the commotion and started shouting from their windows. Some picked up sticks and stones, ready to intervene if necessary. Meanwhile, Rashid was furious. His plan had been executed with precision, yet Hassan had survived, and his family had escaped.
"How dare they," he bellowed. Tonight was supposed to be the end.
No one survives Rashid's wrath. His men looked nervous, glancing at each other.
"We did everything, Sahib. They ran into the alley, we didn't catch them."
Rashid slammed his fist onto the table, sending coins and papers flying.
"They will pay. Hassan will pay. His family will pay.
Tomorrow, I will strike harder, smarter, and there will be no escape." Amina guided the children to a neighbor's house, one of the few who had dared to help them before.
She knocked frantically. The door opened, and the elderly woman looked at them in shock. "Amina. What happened?"
"They tried to kill us," Amina said, gasping.
"Rashid's men, the roof, everything. Please, help us hide. We cannot go back."
The woman nodded quickly, ushering them inside. Ali and Noor clung to their mother, terrified and exhausted. Amina held them tightly, whispering promises of safety, though inside she feared the worst.
Back at their own house, Hassan emerged cautiously.
The intruders had scattered, leaving behind a mess of broken wood and debris. His clothes were torn, his hands and face bruised. He surveyed the damage and his heart ached for what could have happened to his family. But when he heard the familiar voices of Amina and the children from the neighbor's house, he felt a surge of relief. He ran toward them, his body still trembling from exhaustion.
Amina turned as she heard him approaching, tears streaming down her face. "Hassan. You came."
Hassan gathered his family in his arms, holding them tightly.
"I promised I would protect you. And I will. Always." The next day, the neighborhood was buzzing.
Rashid's failed attempt was the talk of the street. Many were angry at him, some emboldened by Hassan and Amina's courage, but fear of further retaliation still kept most silent.
Hassan and Amina met with Imran, the journalist, to discuss another article exposing Rashid's attacks.
"This time," Imran said, "we must be careful. Rashid is dangerous, but the city must know what kind of man he is.
People must see the truth. Amina nodded. Yes. The world must know.
And if telling the truth saves even one family from him, it will be worth it. But Rashid was already plotting his next move. He had been humiliated publicly, resisted physically, and his plans had been thwarted twice. His mind was consumed with vengeance. They think courage can save them, he muttered to himself.
No.
Tonight, there will be no mercy.
Hassan will see what happens when you defy me.
And his family, they will be the first to pay. Inside the safe house, Hassan and Amina spoke quietly with the neighbors.
We cannot stay here forever, Hassan said.
He will return, and next time, he will bring even more men. We need a plan, a way to end this without losing our family.
Amina nodded, her eyes determined. We will fight, Baba. But we must also be smart.
Rashid is dangerous, yes, but courage, truth, and unity can overcome even the worst evil. As night fell, they reinforced the doors, watched the streets, and prayed together. But in the dark alleys and the shadows of the bazaar, Rashid's men waited, ready for the next strike.
The family's fight for survival was far from over.
The night was darker than usual, the streets of the neighborhood cloaked in a thick, heavy silence. Even the wind seemed afraid to blow, carrying only the faint rustle of leaves and distant barking dogs. Amina's heart thumped in her chest as she sat with Hassan and the children in the cramped safe room of the neighbor's house. Hassan had spent the evening pacing, listening to every sound outside. They will come tonight, he whispered. Rashid cannot wait any longer. He will strike when we least expect it, hoping to catch us off guard.
Amina held Ali and Noor close.
Then we must be ready, she replied softly.
We've survived so far. We can survive this too. Allah is with us.
The children clung to her, eyes wide with fear.
Ali whispered, Ami, what if they catch us? Amina kissed his forehead. Then we fight. And we fight together.
Outside, Rashid's men moved with deadly precision. They had been planning this for days, studying every movement of Hassan and Amina, noting their allies, counting the exits. Tonight, they brought not just sticks and knives, but bottles of kerosene, ropes, and hammers. Their goal was simple: terrorize, destroy, and make Hassan beg for mercy.
Rashid stood behind them, eyes dark, jaw clenched.
This time, there will be no escape, he growled.
They have humiliated me twice.
Tonight, they pay in full. The house burns, the family suffers, and Hassan learns the cost of defiance.
Inside, Amina's instincts screamed danger.
She had noticed unusual movements in the shadows earlier, a quiet rustling that didn't belong.
Baba, she whispered to Hassan, I think they're close.
Too close. Hassan tensed, gripping a heavy iron rod. Get the children behind the cupboard.
Keep them quiet.
I'll face whoever comes.
Ali and Noor scrambled to their hiding spot, their tiny bodies shaking. Amina held Noor's hand, whispering, Stay calm, Beta. Don't make a sound.
The first intruder smashed through the back gate, and Hassan met him head-on. The fight was brutal, blows landed, wood splintered, and dust filled the room. Hassan swung with everything he had, blocking knives, shoving attackers back. His muscles burned, but he refused to falter.
Amina, gripping a large kitchen knife, moved to block the second attacker from reaching the children.
Her hands shook, but her eyes blazed with determination. Every strike, every defensive move, was fueled by desperation, love, and fear. The intruders were ruthless, but Hassan and Amina were relentless. For every attack they faced, they returned twice the force. The sound of shattering wood and shouted curses echoed through the narrow streets. Suddenly, a firebomb landed near the house, sending a burst of flames into the yard. Smoke filled the room, and the children began to cough violently. Amina grabbed a bucket of water and threw it on the fire, extinguishing it just in time. The attackers hesitated, frustrated at the family's resilience.
Hassan shouted to Amina, Get the children out the side alley. Now!
Amina grabbed Ali and Noor, running silently toward the narrow passage they had prepared weeks ago. Behind them, Hassan blocked the intruder's path, fighting with a strength born of desperation. He swung with a stick, hitting a man squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling into the dust. The neighbors, having seen the commotion, finally emerged, armed with sticks, stones, and torches. Their presence added chaos to Rashid's plan, forcing some of his men to retreat. But Rashid, furious, brought in reinforcements from nearby areas, men even more ruthless than before. Hassan realized they could not hold out forever. He made a decision. Run to the street. Get to safety, he shouted. Amina and the children darted into the alley, guided by neighbors, hearts pounding, while Hassan stayed behind, fending off attackers. The battle raged for over an hour. Hassan's strength and courage were unmatched, but fatigue was setting in. His arms ached, his body bruised and bleeding. Yet he did not yield. Every attack he blocked, every strike he delivered, was fueled by the thought of his family, safe just a few yards away. Finally, with the sirens of the police growing louder, the attackers began to retreat. Rashid himself disappeared into the shadows, muttering curses, his fury far from sated. Hassan, bruised and exhausted, stumbled toward the alley. Amina rushed to meet him, pulling him into an embrace. The children clung to him tightly, tears and relief mingling on their faces. "We survived," Amina whispered, tears streaming. "We are together. We are alive." Hassan nodded, pressing his forehead to hers. "Yes, but this is far from over. Rashid will not rest. He will come again, and next time, he will be more dangerous." The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers. People were both fearful and inspired. Hassan and Amina's courage had become legendary overnight, but so had Rashid's malice. Many neighbors wanted to help, but fear of retaliation kept most silent. Hassan met with Imran, the journalist, once again. "We must tell the story of last night," Imran said. "The city must know what Rashid is capable of. People must see the truth, and they must know that courage can defeat fear." Amina nodded. "Yes. We cannot let him continue unchecked. If exposing the truth can save even one family, it is worth it." But Rashid was already plotting anew. His 2 failed attacks had only deepened his obsession with vengeance. "They think they can humiliate me and survive," he muttered. "No. Tonight, Hassan will see what true fear is. His family will pay first, and then he will follow. There will be no mercy. There will be no escape." Inside the safe house, Hassan and Amina prepared for another possible strike. They reinforced doors, checked windows, and organized escape routes. The children slept fitfully, sensing the tension but trusting their parents. Hassan held Amina close that night. "We've survived so far. We've faced death and danger. But we must be ready. Rashid will not stop until he gets what he wants." Amina nodded, determination in her eyes. "Then we face him. Together. Always together." The family knew that the coming nights would be the most dangerous yet. Rashid's anger had transformed into obsession, and his next move would be calculated, ruthless, and potentially deadly. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside, was a reminder that the storm had not passed. The morning after the brutal night attack, the city seemed strangely quiet, as if it was watching and waiting. The sun rose, spilling light into the streets, but the heaviness in the air did not lift. Amina stood near the window of the safe house, watching children playing in the distance, their laughter thin and uncertain. Her heart ached at the thought of her own children, who had not slept peacefully in weeks. Hassan was outside, speaking with neighbors who had begun to gather. Some praised his courage, others whispered fearfully that Rashid would come back stronger. "He won't forgive what happened," one man said, shaking his head. "Rashid has been embarrassed twice. He will not stop until he destroys you." Hassan's jaw tightened. "Let him come," he replied. "We will face him, like we always have. But we cannot keep running forever. Something must change." Inside, Amina helped Ali and Noor wash up. She combed Noor's hair gently, noticing how the little girl's eyes still darted nervously at every sound. Ali, though trying to be brave, held his mother's hand tightly. "Ammi," he whispered, "why does Rashid hate us so much?"
Amina paused, stroking his hair. Because we stood up to him, Beta.
Because we said no when everyone else was too afraid. People like Rashid do not like being told they are wrong. But you must never be afraid to do what is right, even if it is hard. Ali nodded slowly, his young mind absorbing her words. He was beginning to understand courage, even if it frightened him. By noon, word had spread that Rashid was furious. His men were seen moving through the bazaar, buying supplies in bulk, whispering in dark corners. Rumors flew, Rashid was planning something bigger than before, something that would shock the entire city. Hassan felt the weight of those whispers pressing down on him. He returned home, where Amina was waiting anxiously. They say Rashid is gathering men, Hassan said grimly.
This time, it will not be a handful. It will be an army. Amina's face paled. Then what do we do? We can't keep fighting them alone. We're only 2 people.
Hassan looked at her, eyes steady. Then we stop running.
We stand firm. And we make sure the world sees what happens here.
If Rashid wants war, then let everyone see who he truly is. That night, Amina wrote a letter with Imran's help, a statement to the local press exposing Rashid's crimes and warning of his threats. She poured her heart into it, her words filled with pain, courage, and truth.
Hassan signed it too, his hands still bruised from the last fight.
Imran promised to publish it in the morning. Once people read this, they will have no choice but to act, he said.
The city cannot stay silent forever. Amina hoped he was right.
But deep inside, she feared Rashid's rage would erupt before anyone could help them.
Midnight arrived with an eerie stillness.
The family had barely settled into uneasy rest when it began the first sound, a distant rumble like rolling thunder.
Then, footsteps. Dozens of them.
The noise grew louder, closer, until the street outside was filled with shadows.
Ali jolted awake, clinging to his father.
Noor began to cry softly. Amina pulled them both close, whispering soothing words, though her own hands trembled. Hassan grabbed his iron rod, his eyes narrowing as he listened. "They're here," he whispered.
"All of them."
Outside, Rashid stood tall, flanked by nearly 20 men, each armed with sticks, chains, and bottles of kerosene. His voice boomed through the night.
"Hassan! Come out like a man. No more hiding behind your wife and children. Tonight ends everything. Either you bow to me, or you burn."
The neighbors peeked from their windows, terrified. Some whispered prayers, others held their children close, but none dared step outside. The street was Rashid's battlefield now. Inside, Hassan's heart pounded.
He looked at Amina, who met his gaze with unwavering determination.
"We can't let him win," she said. "If we surrender now, everything we've endured will be for nothing."
Hassan nodded. "Then we fight. Together."
The first blow came when Rashid's men hurled stones through the windows, shattering glass and filling the air with dust. Ali screamed, Noor clung to her mother, and Hassan leapt to shield them.
Amina pulled the children into the inner room, barricading the door with whatever furniture she could move. Hassan met the first attackers head-on, swinging his rod with all his might.
The clash was brutal, loud, and terrifying. Rashid himself entered the yard, shouting orders, his face twisted with hatred.
"Drag him out. Burn the house. Show everyone what happens when you defy me."
The attackers poured into the house, but Hassan fought like a man possessed. Every swing knocked one down, every shout from his throat echoed with defiance. Still, the sheer number overwhelmed him. One man swung a chain, striking Hassan across the shoulder, sending him stumbling. Another lunged with a knife, but Hassan grabbed his wrist, twisting until the weapon clattered to the ground. In the inner room, Amina held the children close, whispering prayers, tears streaming down her face. She could hear the chaos outside, the smashing, the shouting, the terrifying roars of men consumed by violence. Her heart begged her to stay hidden, but her soul refused to abandon Hassan. Gripping the knife, Amina burst from the room, her voice fierce.
"Stay away from my family."
She slashed at the nearest attacker, surprising him enough to make him retreat. Her courage fueled Hassan, who roared and struck with renewed strength.
For a moment, the tide shifted. The attackers stumbled back, shocked by the family's ferocity. But Rashid's voice cut through the air like a blade. Do not stop. Crush them. One man hurled a bottle of kerosene into the corner of the room, igniting a blaze. Flames leapt up, filling the air with thick, choking smoke. Amina gasped, pulling the children toward the alley, but Rashid blocked the exit, his grin cruel. You thought you could defy me forever, he sneered. Now, you will burn. Hassan charged at Rashid, fury blazing in his eyes. The two men collided with a force that shook the room. Hassan's rod clanged against Rashid's chain, sparks flying as the two enemies fought hand-to-hand. Their struggle was primal, raw, and desperate. Smoke thickened, the fire spreading quickly. Amina coughed violently, shielding the children with her body. Her eyes darted around, searching for another way out. Then she saw it, a small opening near the back wall, half covered with debris. She shoved the furniture aside, pushing Ali and Noor through the gap. Run, Beta! Don't stop, she cried. Ali pulled his sister, guiding her into the night, their tiny forms vanishing into the darkness. Amina turned back just in time to see Hassan and Rashid locked in a deadly grapple, flames surrounding them. Hassan's strength was waning, his arms trembling, but he refused to yield. He thought of his children, of Amina, of everything they had endured. With one final roar, he struck Rashid across the face, sending him reeling into the fire. Rashid screamed, thrashing, his clothes catching flames. The attackers panicked at the sight, some rushing to help Rashid, others fleeing in terror. The fire raged out of control, consuming the walls, the roof, everything. Hassan staggered toward Amina, his body battered, his lungs burning. Amina grabbed his arm, dragging him toward the gap. Together, coughing and stumbling, they escaped into the night. Outside, neighbors rushed to meet them, pulling them to safety, shielding them from the flames. A house collapsed behind them, swallowed by fire. Rashid's screams echoed into the night, then faded into silence. The attackers scattered, their leader defeated, their courage broken. The street was filled with smoke, chaos, and fear, but also a strange sense of justice. Hassan collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Amina held him tightly, tears streaming down her face. The children ran to them, clinging desperately, sobbing with relief. They had survived. Again. But at what cost? Their home was gone, their lives forever changed, and Rashid's fate, whether dead or alive, remained uncertain. The neighbors gathered, some whispering prayers, others murmuring admiration. For the first time, many looked at Hassan and Amina not with pity, but with respect. Their courage had become undeniable, their strength a beacon in the darkness. But Hassan knew it was not over. Rashid, he may be gone, or he may return. But this fight is bigger than him. It is about every family who has ever lived in fear. We cannot stop now. We must keep standing, keep speaking, until no one like Rashid ever rules again. Amina held his hand tightly, nodding through her tears. Yes. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The flames died slowly, leaving only ashes where their home once stood. The night carried the heavy scent of smoke and loss. Yet in the midst of destruction, a new strength had been born, one that would not easily be broken. The morning after the fire, the street looked like a battlefield. Black smoke still rose from the ashes of Hassan and Amina's home, drifting lazily into the gray sky. The smell of burnt wood and melted iron clung to the air, making every breath heavy. Neighbors stood silently in clusters, their faces pale, eyes reflecting shock and disbelief. Amina sat on a low wall with her children pressed against her. Noor hadn't stopped crying since dawn, her little voice hoarse from smoke and fear. Ali, though trying to be brave, stared at the ruins of their house with blank, wide eyes. His childhood had been burned away with those walls. Hassan stood apart, his clothes torn, his body bruised, but his eyes searching. He had been staring into the ruins since morning, scanning every corner, every piece of debris. Baba, Amina whispered, walking to him, come sit for a while. You've been standing here since sunrise. Hassan didn't move. His voice was low, rough. I need to be sure. Sure of what? That he's gone.
At that moment, Imran, the journalist, arrived with his camera slung over his shoulder. His eyes widened at the sight of the ruins.
Ya Allah! Hassan Bhai, this is worse than I imagined. The city must see this. People must know what happened here last night.
He began taking pictures, capturing the broken walls, the scattered belongings, the haunting emptiness where life once thrived. Then he lowered his camera and looked at Hassan.
Was Rashid inside when the fire spread? Hassan's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly.
I saw him fall into the flames. His men tried to pull him out, but the fire was too strong. I think, he hesitated, his eyes dark. I think it finished him. Amina placed a hand on her husband's arm, but her voice carried doubt.
We didn't see a body, Hassan.
What if he escaped? Her words chilled the air. Hassan turned, staring into her eyes. He wanted to dismiss the thought, to end the nightmare with certainty. But deep down, the possibility gnawed at him.
Rashid was too cunning, too cruel. Could a fire alone end him?
As if to answer, whispers began spreading in the neighborhood by afternoon. Some swore they had seen Rashid's men carrying a body away in the chaos. Others claimed Rashid had stumbled into the alleys, burned but alive, his screams echoing as he vanished into the night.
People are saying he survived, Imran said gravely. If that's true, he'll come back.
And he'll be more dangerous than ever.
Hassan clenched his fists. Let him come. We've fought before. We'll fight again. Amina, though, shivered.
Her mother's intuition told her this was far from over. A man like Rashid did not die so easily.
The family moved temporarily into the neighbor's home.
Nights were restless, every sound in the alley made the children wake with fear. Noor cried for hours, clutching her mother.
Ali asked questions that broke Amina's heart. Ami, if our house is gone, are we homeless now?
Where will we live?
Will Rashid find us here too?
Amina hugged him tightly, whispering through tears.
Home is not just walls, Beta. Home is us, together. As long as we are together, we are safe.
But inside, she wondered how long they could endure.
3 days later, news broke that sent fresh waves of fear through the city.
Rashid had been spotted. Burned, scarred, but alive. Witnesses said he was hiding in the outskirts, nursing his wounds, plotting revenge. He survived, Imran confirmed, his voice grim. The police claim they're searching for him, but you know how it is. Rashid has friends in high places. He'll disappear, then return stronger. Hassan slammed his fist onto the table, startling everyone.
No. I won't let this monster keep controlling our lives.
If the police won't stop him, I will.
Amina's eyes filled with tears. And what if he kills you this time? What happens to us? To the children?
Hassan looked at her, torn between love and rage.
Then what's the alternative, Amina? Keep hiding? Keep running? Watch our children grow up in fear? No.
This ends with me, one way or another.
That night, the family prayed together.
Amina's voice trembled as she whispered du'as for protection, while Hassan's silent prayers carried a different weight, a plea for strength to finish what had begun. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the distant bark of dogs and the unsettling sense that eyes were watching from the darkness. Ali stirred in his sleep, murmuring, Ami, the fire is coming again. Amina soothed him, though unease gripped her heart. The fire had destroyed their home, but its shadow still haunted their lives. The next morning, while Hassan stepped out to meet with Imran, a stranger appeared at the neighbor's house. His face was unfamiliar, his clothes worn, but his eyes sharp. He knocked gently, then spoke in a low voice.
Amina Baji. I have a message. Amina froze. From who?
The man glanced around nervously before whispering, from Rashid.
Her heart dropped. What does he want?
The man's lips curved into a cruel smile.
He says this isn't over.
He says he lost his men, his honor, and almost his life because of you. And he swears, on the fire that scarred him, that he will return.
Not just for Hassan. For you. For your children. Amina's knees buckled. She grabbed the wall to steady herself, her breath shallow. Before she could reply, the man slipped back into the alley, disappearing like smoke. When Hassan returned, Amina told him everything, her voice trembling. Hassan's fury erupted. He dares send threats through messengers now? He's not finished until one of us is dead. Fine. If it's war he wants, I'll give him war. But Amina grabbed his arm, tears streaming. Hassan, don't let his hatred turn you into him. Please. Promise me, whatever happens, you won't lose yourself to vengeance. Hassan stared at her, breathing hard. His anger slowly softened as he cupped her face. I promise. But I will protect you. I will protect our children, no matter the cost. That night, Hassan and Amina held their children close, listening to the silence of the neighborhood. But silence, they knew, was only the calm before the storm. Somewhere in the shadows, Rashid was alive, scarred, and planning. And soon, he would strike again. The city had almost begun to breathe again, as if the fire that destroyed Hassan and Amina's home had also burned away Rashid's shadow. Children played in the alleys once more, shopkeepers reopened their shutters, and whispers of relief floated through tea stalls and market corners. People told themselves the nightmare was over, that Rashid was finished. But darkness rarely disappears so easily. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the streets in shades of blood red, a hush spread through the neighborhood. A car no one recognized rolled slowly into the narrow lanes. Its engine growled low, its tinted windows reflecting the fading light. Children stopped playing, mothers pulled them inside, and men at the tea stall exchanged wary glances. The car door opened. And out stepped Rashid. He was not the same man who once strutted through the streets in crisp clothes and polished shoes. His face was half-burned, skin melted into grotesque scars. One eye was clouded white, and his hair was singed unevenly. Bandages wrapped his hands, and his once commanding voice was now hoarse, broken, like gravel scraping stone. But his presence, was more terrifying than ever. He stood there, breathing heavily, surveying the silence around him. Fear clung to the air like smoke. Somewhere, a woman gasped. Somewhere else, a child whimpered. Rashid smiled, a cruel, twisted smile that stretched the scars of his face. Did you think a little fire could kill me? He rasped. No. I am fire now. Hassan was returning from work when he heard the whispers rushing through the streets. Rashid is back. Rashid has returned. His heart pounded as he quickened his pace, each step heavy with dread. By the time he reached the neighborhood, the crowd had already begun to scatter. Rashid stood in the center like a king reclaiming his throne, his men fewer than before, but hardened, flanking him like shadows. Hassan's eyes locked onto his enemies. For a moment, time froze. The world seemed to vanish, leaving only two men bound by hatred. Rashid tilted his head, his ruined face twisting into mockery. So, Hassan, did you think you were rid of me? Hassan clenched his fists, forcing his voice to remain steady. You should have stayed in the fire. Rashid's laughter was jagged, broken. I walked out of it, Hassan. And now I bring it with me. That night, fear returned to the alleys. People locked their doors early. Children were hushed, lights were dimmed, and prayers rose quietly from trembling lips. Inside the neighbor's house, Amina held Noor and Ali close, her heart racing. The sound of Rashid's laughter still echoed in her ears. She turned to Hassan. We can't stay here. Not with him back. Not with him watching us. Hassan's eyes were dark, but steady. Running will only make him chase us harder. This time, Amina, I won't just defend. I'll end this. Her tears glistened in the lamplight. And if he ends you first? What happens to us then? Hassan couldn't answer. He simply wrapped his arms around her, pressing his forehead against hers, silently vowing to stand until his last breath. The next day, Rashid made his presence known. His men roamed the market, intimidating shopkeepers, demanding loyalty. One by one, old faces bent their heads, too afraid to resist. Rashid, scarred but unbroken, was rebuilding his empire.
Imran, the journalist, rushed to Hassan's side with urgency. This is worse than before. His scars have made him fearless.
He has nothing to lose now. And that makes him unstoppable.
Nothing is unstoppable, Hassan said firmly.
Not even him. Imran frowned.
The police won't help.
The people are too scared. If you face him alone, Hassan, it may destroy you. Hassan's silence spoke louder than words.
That evening, Rashid sent another message, this time not through whispers, but in flames. One of Hassan's relatives, a distant cousin, found his small shop set ablaze. He barely escaped with his life.
Written in blackened soot on the wall was a single word, next. The warning was clear. Rashid wasn't just after Hassan. He was declaring war on everyone tied to him.
When Hassan saw the destruction, rage boiled in his veins. This ends tonight, he muttered, his fists trembling. But Amina grabbed him, her nails digging into his arms.
Don't you see? This is what he wants. He wants you to walk into his fire. Please, Hassan, think of Ali and Noor. If something happens to you, what will become of them?
Her words broke something inside him.
He pulled her into his arms, whispering, Then what should I do, Amina? Watch as he destroys everyone we love? Watch as he comes closer to you, to our children? I can't.
Noor stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly. Hassan looked at her tiny face and felt the weight of his world pressing down. Later that night, as the family sat in silence, a sound shattered the air, a rock crashing through the window, glass scattering across the floor. Noor screamed, Ali jumped up in shock, and Amina rushed to cover them.
Hassan picked up the rock.
Wrapped around it was a burnt piece of cloth.
Scrawled in ashen blood were the words, Tomorrow. Hassan's heart pounded. Tomorrow, Rashid was coming. The family could not sleep.
Every tick of the clock was heavy, every creak of the floor made them flinch.
Outside, the wind howled like a warning. Hassan sat awake, staring at the rock on the table. His mind replayed every moment, every threat, every scream. He thought of his children, their tiny hands gripping him. He thought of Amina, her tears, her courage. And he thought of Rashid, burned, broken, yet alive. He whispered to himself, Tomorrow. Tomorrow it ends.
The morning came with an unnatural stillness. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, and the air carried a tension that made the birds quiet. Hassan sat by the window, his eyes fixed on the street below.
Every shadow seemed suspicious, every footstep an omen.
Amina moved silently around the room, preparing breakfast for the children, though none of them felt hungry. Noor clung to her doll, while Ali tried to appear brave, though the tremor in his hands betrayed him. The rock from last night still sat on the table, a cruel reminder of the threat scrawled upon it, Tomorrow. And today was that tomorrow. By midday, whispers began spreading across the neighborhood. Rashid had been seen limping, wrapped in dark clothes, but very much alive, making his way through the streets with his men. Some said his face was covered, others claimed he let his scars show proudly, as if daring the world to stare. Doors shut quickly as he passed. Curtains twitched, but no one dared step outside. Rashid's name alone had always carried fear, but now, with his burned and broken body, he seemed less man and more demon risen from the ashes. Imran, the journalist, rushed to Hassan's door, panting.
He's coming this way. Hassan bhai, you must get your family out now. Amina's eyes widened. Where can we go?
He'll find us anywhere. Hassan stood tall, his fists clenched.
No. If we run now, we'll keep running forever. Let him come. Let him see that this family doesn't bow.
The first sign of Rashid's arrival was the sound of boots striking against the stone road in perfect rhythm. Then came the voices, low murmurs of his men. Finally, the knock, loud, deliberate, echoing like a death sentence against the neighbor's door where Hassan and his family stayed.
Open, came Rashid's hoarse voice. Or I'll burn it down. Silence held the room. Noor clung to Amina, trembling. Ali pressed against his father's leg, whispering, Baba, don't open it. But Hassan's hand was already on the handle. He turned to Amina, his eyes fierce but soft. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, don't let go of the children." Amina's tears threatened to fall, but she nodded. The door creaked open. And there stood Rashid. The fire had changed him. His face was a map of scars, his eyes wild with fury. The once proud gangster now looked like a monster forged in flames. Behind him, half a dozen men stood ready, their expressions cold. "Hassan," Rashid rasped, his ruined lips curling into a grotesque grin. "You thought the fire ended me. But I was reborn in it." Hassan's voice was steady, though his heart thundered. "You should have stayed in the ashes." Rashid stepped forward, his presence suffocating. "No. I came back for you. For her." His scarred finger pointed at Amina, making her flinch. "And for your children. You took everything from me, my men, my face, my power. Now, I'll take everything from you." The neighbors huddled behind their doors, listening in horror. Imran, hiding in a corner with his camera, captured every moment, knowing the world needed to see this truth, but fearing it might also be his last footage. Hassan raised his hand, blocking Rashid's view of Amina and the children. "You'll have to go through me first." Rashid's laugh was broken, jagged. "Gladly." With a snap of his fingers, his men surged forward. The room erupted in chaos. Hassan fought with everything he had, his fists, his strength, his will to protect. He threw one man against the wall, kicked another down. But there were too many. Amina screamed, shielding the children as one of the men lunged toward her. At the last second, Hassan grabbed a chair and swung it, shattering it across the attacker's back. "Run, Amina!" Hassan shouted. "Take the children and run!" But the door was blocked by Rashid, who stood still, smiling through his scars as the battle unfolded. "No one leaves," he growled. Ali cried out, "Baba," as another man pinned Hassan against the wall. Hassan struggled, his face red with effort, until with a burst of strength he broke free and knocked the man to the ground. Rashid clapped slowly, mockingly. "Still strong. Still foolish. But strength won't save them." His scarred hand moved, pulling something from his coat. A gun. Amina gasped, her hands tightening around the children. Hassan froze, his eyes locking onto the weapon. "Tonight," Rashid rasped, his voice shaking with fury, "your blood will pay for my fire." But before Rashid could raise the gun, a sudden crash echoed from outside. The sound of police sirens wailed through the street, growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed against the windows. Rashid's men panicked. "Boss, we have to go." Rashid's one good eye burned with rage. He glared at Hassan, his voice dripping with venom. "This isn't over. I'll come again. And when I do, not even God will save you." With that, he backed away, disappearing into the shadows as the police stormed the street. His men scattered, vanishing into alleys. Silence fell. Hassan collapsed to his knees, sweat and blood dripping from his face. Amina rushed to him, tears streaming, clutching his shoulders. Noor sobbed into her mother's lap. Ali stood frozen, his young face pale with terror. Imran emerged from his hiding spot, his camera still recording. His voice shook. "The world needs to see this. They need to know Rashid is still alive, still haunting us. Only then will people rise against him." Hassan lifted his head, his eyes burning with determination. "Then show them. Show everyone. Because this fight is only beginning." The night after Rashid's attack, the city didn't sleep. The wail of sirens still echoed in the distance, but inside the narrow lanes, people whispered in fear. Every house had lights burning late into the night, doors bolted tight, prayers whispered again and again. Rashid's name was once more on every lip, only now, it carried even greater terror than before. Inside the neighbor's small home, Amina rocked Noor in her arms, trying to calm the child's sobs. Ali sat close to his father, silent but wide-eyed, as if replaying the horror of Rashid's scarred face pointing a gun at them. Hassan sat against the wall, his body bruised, his mind heavier than ever. He had fought like a lion,
but deep inside, he knew something bitter. Rashid had let him live. He had chosen to retreat because of the police. That meant he would come again, more prepared, more dangerous, more cruel. The next morning, Imran's footage was already spreading through the city. On small screens in tea stalls, in offices, on phones passed hand to hand, people saw the truth. The image of Rashid, burned but alive, standing with a gun in his scarred hand, filled the air with shock. Some shook their heads in disbelief.
We thought he was gone. Others trembled. If even fire can't kill him, then who can? But some voices, braver than others, began to rise. If Hassan can stand against him, why can't we?
Imran's words accompanied the footage. This is the face of the man who has terrorized our streets.
Look at him. He is not invincible.
He is broken, scarred, desperate. And yet, one man, Hassan, stood between him and his family.
If he can stand, so can we.
By midday, Hassan was being called a hero. Strangers came quietly to the neighbor's house, slipping food, blankets, and whispered words of courage through the door. One elderly man gripped Hassan's hand and said, "You remind us what it means to fight for honor." But Hassan shook his head.
Don't call me a hero. I only want to protect my family.
Still, inside, he felt a new weight pressing on him. The people's eyes were turning to him. Their hope was resting on his shoulders. And he knew hope was as heavy as chains. That night, Amina confronted him softly.
Hassan, you can't fight Rashid alone anymore. Look around you. Everyone is watching.
If you fall, their hope will fall too.
Hassan lowered his gaze. I never asked for this. I just wanted peace for us.
Amina touched his hand gently.
Sometimes, we don't choose the fight. The fight chooses us.
Her words lingered in his mind long after the children had fallen asleep. Meanwhile, in the dark corners of the city, Rashid sat before a broken mirror, staring at his own ruined reflection. His men hovered nervously, none daring to speak.
Rashid's good eye burned with madness. Do you see, brothers?
They cheer for him. They dare call him a hero while he pointed at his melted skin, his trembling hands.
I am treated like a beast. He took everything from me. And now the city dares to rise with him?
His voice cracked into a roar.
Then let the city burn with him. His men exchanged uneasy glances, but nodded.
Whatever humanity Rashid once had, the fire had burned it away. What remained was rage. The following days were filled with tension.
On one side, people whispered courage, inspired by Hassan's defiance.
On the other, fear grew as Rashid's men began targeting anyone who dared speak against him. A shopkeeper who praised Hassan found his store ransacked overnight. A young man who shouted Rashid's name in anger was found beaten in the street. The city was splitting in two, those who wanted to fight, and those too afraid to try. Hassan watched it unfold with a heavy heart.
He's not just after me anymore, he told Imran.
He's turning this into a war against anyone who resists him. If we don't stop him now, he'll drag the whole city into fire.
Imran nodded grimly.
Then maybe it's time you stop being just a father defending his family, Hassan.
Maybe it's time you lead.
Hassan froze. The word lead echoed in his ears. He was no leader, no politician, no soldier. He was just a man who loved his family.
But could love itself become a weapon?
That evening, Hassan gathered a few trusted men from the neighborhood, shopkeepers, laborers, even a schoolteacher. They sat in a dimly lit room, their voices low but firm. "We are tired of living in fear," one said. "He has ruled these streets for too long," another added.
"Tell us, Hassan, what do we do?" Hassan looked around at their expectant faces.
His chest tightened.
He wanted to say, "I don't know." He wanted to say, "I can't."
But instead, he heard his own voice say, "We fight. Together." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. For the first time, the people weren't just whispering hope, they were choosing it. But even as hope flickered, danger loomed.
That same night, Rashid's men left a new message.
On the wall outside the neighbor's house, scrawled in soot and blood, were the words, "Next, the children." When Amina saw it at dawn, her scream shook the walls. She clutched Ali and Noor to her chest, sobbing.
Ya Allah, not them. Please, not them.
Hassan's blood turned to fire. He scraped the words from the wall with his bare hands until his skin bled. His voice trembled with rage.
He won't touch them. I swear it.
But Amina grabbed his hands, tears streaming.
How, Hassan? He is everywhere. How will you protect them every second? He is not just threatening you now. He is threatening their lives.
Hassan held her gaze, his voice breaking.
Then I will give my life before he lays a finger on them.
The city buzzed with rumors of Rashid's next move.
Some said he planned to kidnap Hassan's children to break his spirit.
Others whispered he would set fire to the neighborhood itself, to punish all who dared shelter his enemies. The people who had once felt safe now lived in trembling fear again. Mothers pulled their children closer, men carried sticks and knives in their belts, doors were bolted tighter than ever.
And Hassan knew the storm was coming.
That night, as the family huddled together, Hassan whispered to Amina, "No matter what happens, you keep them safe.
Even if I fall, you keep them safe." Amina shook her head, her tears wetting his chest. Don't say such things. You won't fall. You can't. If you do, everything breaks.
But Hassan only closed his eyes, listening to the distant thunder outside. He felt it in his bones, the fire was returning. The city awoke the next morning under a heavy silence. Clouds hung low, thick with the promise of rain, but in the alleys there was no sign of relief. The people whispered, fearful of what was to come. Rashid's threat from the night before and next, the children clung to the air like smoke.
Inside the neighbor's home, Amina dressed Ali and Noor quickly, her hands trembling with every button she fastened.
Her eyes darted to the door again and again, as if expecting it to burst open at any moment.
Hassan watched her, his jaw tight. He had not slept. He had sat awake all night, knife in hand, staring at the door, listening for the slightest sound. His body ached, but his mind burned with a single thought: they will not touch my children. Ali, sensing the tension, asked in a quiet voice, "Baba, why does Rashid hate us so much?" Hassan knelt before his son, looking into his wide, innocent eyes. His throat tightened, but he answered, "Because we stood against him. Because we said no when everyone else was too afraid. And men like him, they hate when people are not afraid anymore." Ali swallowed hard. "But I'm afraid, Baba."
Hassan pulled him close, his voice breaking.
"So am I, Beta. But courage means protecting those you love, even when you are afraid."
That afternoon, heavy rain began to fall, drumming against the rooftops, filling the narrow alleys with rushing water. The neighborhood was unusually quiet, as if holding its breath. Then came the scream. Amina rushed to the window, her face pale. In the alley, two masked men were dragging a young boy by the arm. It wasn't Ali, it was the shopkeeper's son. The mother ran after them, wailing, but she was shoved to the ground. The neighbors cried out, but none dared step forward. Rashid's men were sending a message: if they couldn't get to Hassan's children, they would take someone else's. "No!" Hassan roared, bursting out the door. Rain soaked his clothes instantly as he sprinted into the alley. The men turned, startled, but Hassan was already on them. He slammed into the first, knocking him into the wall. The second swung a knife, but Hassan caught his wrist, twisting until the blade fell. The boy broke free and ran into his mother's arms. The alley filled with shouts as neighbors emerged, emboldened by Hassan's stand. The two men stumbled back, retreating into the rain, but not before spitting their warning. Tonight we come for your own." Back inside, Amina clutched Ali and Noor to her chest, her sobs mixing with the sound of the rain. "Hassan, they won't stop. Every day, every night, they'll try again until..." "Until what?" Hassan snapped, his voice trembling with fury. "Until I hand them our children? Until we surrender? No. Let them come. I will fight them all." Amina grabbed his face, tears streaming down her cheeks.
You can fight men. But what about Rashid? He is not just a man anymore. He is something darker. Hassan, he won't stop until he destroys us or we destroy him.
The weight of her words pressed down on him.
He knew she was right.
That night, the rain stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the dim glow of lanterns. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the city itself knew what was coming. Hassan sat by the door, knife in hand, his eyes unblinking.
Amina kept the children close, whispering prayers over and over.
Noor clutched her doll so tightly the seams began to tear.
Ali tried to stay awake, but exhaustion dragged him into uneasy sleep. Then came the sound. Footsteps.
Dozens of them, crunching against the whetstones outside.
Low voices, murmurs. The scrape of metal. Rashid's men. The door rattled once. Twice.
Then, with a thunderous crack, it burst open.
Chaos erupted.
Men poured in, their faces hidden, their hands gripping knives, sticks, and chains.
Hassan lunged forward with a roar, slashing his knife across the first intruder's arm.
The man screamed, stumbling back.
Another swung a chain, but Hassan ducked and drove his shoulder into the attacker's chest, knocking him flat. Amina screamed, pulling the children into a corner, shielding them with her body.
Noor cried hysterically. Ali clutched his mother, his eyes wide with terror.
"Take the kids," one of the men shouted. "No!"
Hassan bellowed, fighting with a desperation born of love. He slammed a chair across another man's back, sending him crashing to the floor.
But there were too many.
Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos. A hoarse, scarred voice.
"Enough!" The men froze. Slowly, they stepped aside.
And through the broken doorway, limping on his burned leg, came Rashid. The sight of him made the room feel colder. His scarred face twisted into a grin as his one good eye locked onto Hassan. "You've made quite a name for yourself," Rashid rasped.
"The hero of the people. The man who defies me. But tell me, hero, can you protect them from me?"
His gaze shifted to the corner, where Amina held the children. Noor whimpered, hiding her face in her mother's shawl. Ali stared at Rashid with terrified defiance. Rashid's grin widened.
"Tonight, I take what you love most. Tonight, you learn what fire truly feels like." Hassan's body trembled with rage. "You'll have to kill me first."
Rashid's voice cracked into a cruel laugh.
"That's the plan."
He raised his hand, and his men surged forward again.
The room dissolved into chaos once more.
Hassan fought like a man possessed, his knife flashing, his fists striking.
But Rashid didn't join the fight.
He simply stood there, watching, his scarred smile never fading.
Amina screamed as one of the men grabbed Ali by the arm, yanking him away.
Hassan turned, roaring, and hurled himself at the attacker, driving the knife into his shoulder. The man howled, releasing the boy, who scrambled back to his mother. Rashid clapped slowly, mockingly.
"Brave. Very brave. But bravery won't save them forever."
He stepped forward now, pulling something from his coat. Not a gun this time, but a torch. Its flame flickered, casting shadows across his ruined face. "You burned me, Hassan," he rasped.
"Now I burn everything you love." The neighbors, hearing the chaos, began to gather outside.
Some shouted, some banged on the walls, but fear kept most from rushing in.
Imran was there too, his camera recording, his voice trembling.
"The world must see this, the world must see the monster he has become." Inside, the torchlight danced across Amina's terrified face. Noor screamed, Ali pressed closer to his mother. Hassan stood between them and Rashid, his chest heaving, his knife slick with blood.
"Put it down," Hassan growled.
Rashid tilted his head, his scarred smile widening.
"No.
Tonight, we finish what the fire began." The torch flared brighter as Rashid lifted it higher, the fire reflecting in his single, vengeful eye. The smell of oil stung the air, mingling with the iron scent of blood.
Hassan's chest heaved as he took a step forward, gripping his knife tighter.
Behind him, Amina's arms locked around Ali and Noor, her body trembling but firm, as if she could shield them from fire itself. The men surrounding Rashid laughed, cruel and mocking, but even they shifted uneasily at the sight of the flame. They knew Rashid's madness well. When fire was in his hand, nothing was safe, not even them. "Don't do this," Hassan growled, his voice hoarse but steady. "You'll burn them alive. You'll burn yourself too." Rashid's scarred smile deepened. "That's the beauty of fire, Hassan. It takes everything. It leaves nothing. It doesn't care who suffers. Just like me." He lowered the torch toward a broken chair leg drenched in oil on the floor. The flame caught instantly, crackling, spreading like a hungry beast. Smoke curled upward, choking the room. Noor screamed. Ali buried his face in his mother's chest. "No!" Hassan lunged. The clash was violent, sudden, and desperate. Hassan's knife flashed toward Rashid's arm, but Rashid twisted, his burned leg dragging yet moving with surprising speed. The torch swung wildly, spraying sparks. One ember landed on the curtain, it ignited instantly, fire racing upward. Amina's shriek pierced the chaos. "Hassan!" Rashid swung the torch down, aiming for Hassan's face. Hassan raised his arm, the flame scorching his sleeve, the heat searing his skin. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain, and drove his shoulder into Rashid's chest. They both crashed into the wall, the torch clattering to the ground. But even fallen, the fire spread. The wooden floor hissed and popped as flames crawled outward. Outside, neighbors pressed against the doorway, panic rising. Some shouted to bring water, others hesitated, too afraid to enter. Imran's camera shook in his hands as he cried out, "Do something. He'll kill them all." But fear rooted the crowd. Inside, the smoke thickened. Amina coughed violently, clutching the children tighter. Noor sobbed uncontrollably. Ali tried to stay strong but tears streaked his face. The heat pressed down like a living thing. Rashid, wheezing from the impact, shoved Hassan back and snatched the torch again, its flame still alive. His scarred face glowed orange in the firelight. "I'll burn the whole house down. And when your screams fade, everyone will know what happens when you defy me." Hassan's vision blurred from smoke, but rage sharpened his focus. He charged again, grabbing Rashid's wrist, forcing the torch away from Amina and the children. They grappled, bodies slamming against walls, feet kicking embers across the floor. "You can't protect them forever," Rashid spat, his breath hot and foul. "I'll keep coming, even from the grave." Hassan snarled, his voice breaking with fury and love. "Then I'll bury you myself." With a surge of strength, he twisted Rashid's arm. The torch dropped again, this time into a puddle of water from the leaking roof. The flame hissed and died, smoke curling upward. For a moment, the room fell silent except for the crackle of the curtains burning. Rashid's men shifted uneasily, their courage faltering as they saw their leader struggling. Hassan shoved Rashid backward, his knife pressed to his throat. For the first time, fear flickered in Rashid's eye. But before Hassan could end it, one of the men swung a wooden beam at his back. The impact sent him staggering forward, the knife clattering to the ground. Rashid gasped, scrambling to his feet, rage boiling hotter than the flames. "Kill him!" Rashid roared. "Kill him, and drag the children out." The mob surged forward. Hassan, dazed but unbroken, grabbed a burning plank from the floor. He swung it wildly, the flames forcing the men back. His voice thundered over the crackling fire. "You want them? You'll have to walk through me." His defiance ignited something outside. The neighbors, who had stood frozen with fear, suddenly rushed forward. Buckets of water sloshed through the doorway, dousing flames. A man hurled a stone at Rashid's men, another swung a stick. The crowd had found its courage. Imran, tears streaming down his face, shouted, "He is not alone anymore. Rashid, your time is over." The tide turned. Rashid's men faltered under the sudden wave of resistance. Some fled into the night, others dropped their weapons, unwilling to burn for their master's rage. But Rashid himself stood firm, his chest heaving, his scarred smile trembling with madness. He looked at Hassan, then at the neighbors rushing in, and bellowed, "This isn't the end. You think you've won,
but I will return. I always return."
With that, he shoved past the chaos, limping into the alley, disappearing into the smoke and shadows. His men followed, leaving the house battered, burned, but still standing. Silence settled, broken only by the sound of dripping water and Noor's sobs.
Amina collapsed to her knees, clutching the children, whispering prayers of gratitude.
Neighbors surrounded Hassan, lifting him up, their voices filled with awe.
"You saved them. You stood against him.
You gave us courage." Hassan, coughing from smoke, looked at the charred walls, at his trembling wife and terrified children. His voice was raw, but steady.
"This isn't finished. He'll come back. He won't stop until one of us is gone."
The neighbors exchanged uneasy glances.
They knew he was right.
Rashid was wounded, humiliated, but not defeated. A wounded beast was the most dangerous of all. That night, as the family huddled together in the smoke-stained room, Hassan's words echoed in the silence.
Amina whispered, her voice heavy with dread, "If he comes again, what if we cannot stop him?"
Hassan pulled her close, his eyes burning with a fire of their own.
"Then I'll make sure he never comes again."
One way or another, it ends soon.
Outside, the city lay in uneasy quiet, waiting for Rashid's next move.
The smoke had cleared by morning, but the stench of ash clung stubbornly to the air. Hassan stepped outside into the pale gray light, his muscles aching from the night's battle. The streets were quiet, too quiet. Children did not play, shopkeepers barely opened their stalls, and whispers followed him wherever he walked. He was no longer just Hassan the shopkeeper, he was the man who had stood against Rashid. But with that honor came a shadow of fear.
Everyone knew Rashid would return.
Imran approached with tired eyes and his ever-present camera slung over his shoulder. "The video from last night is everywhere," he said.
"People are calling you a hero.
They're saying maybe Rashid can be defeated."
Hassan's face hardened.
Words won't stop him.
He won't forgive this. He'll come back stronger, angrier.
And when he does, his voice trailed off, his gaze drifting to the smoke-stained window where Amina sat with Ali and Noor.
Imran lowered his voice.
"Then maybe it's time to end this, Hassan.
Not just defend yourself. End him."
Far across the city, Rashid sat in the darkened warehouse that had become his lair. His burned leg was wrapped in cloth, his chest bandaged, but his one good eye blazed with fury. Around him, his men sat in uneasy silence, waiting for their leader to speak. Finally, Rashid's laugh broke the stillness, low at first, then rising into something sharp and cruel. "They think they've won," he rasped.
"They think pouring a few buckets of water and swinging sticks makes them strong. But strength comes from fear. And fear, my brothers, will return."
One of the men, younger and braver than the rest, spoke up.
"But the people are turning against us. That man.
Hassan, he gave them courage.
If we strike again, they might rise together."
Rashid turned his head slowly, his scar pulling tight across his face.
"Then we won't strike the man. We'll strike the city.
We'll show them that no hero can save them from me." He spread a map across the table, his finger tapping the marketplace, the heart of the neighborhood. "Tomorrow night, when the square is full, we burn it all. Stalls, shops, children. They will watch everything they built turn to ash. And Hassan will know that their screams are his fault."
The men exchanged uneasy glances.
It was madness. But no one dared refuse him.
Back in the neighborhood, Amina tried to give the children some sense of normalcy. She set out food, though her hands shook too badly to eat.
Noor clung to her doll, Ali stared at the door as if expecting it to burst open again.
"Baba," Ali whispered, "will Rashid come tonight?"
Hassan knelt beside him, his face weary but determined.
"Not tonight, Beta. But soon. And when he does, I will be ready."
Ali's voice trembled.
"What if he takes me? What if he takes Noor?" Hassan's throat tightened.
He placed a hand on his son's shoulder, speaking with quiet conviction. "As long as I breathe, no one will touch you." From the doorway, Amina watched them, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to believe him.
But deep in her heart, a fear gnawed. How long could one man hold back the tide? That evening, Imran returned, breathless. Hassan, I've heard whispers. Rashid is planning something bigger this time. Not just you, everyone. The marketplace. Tomorrow night. Hassan's blood ran cold. The marketplace was the lifeline of the city, the stalls where families bought food, where children played, where people gathered to laugh and share stories. If Rashid destroyed it, hope itself would burn. He wants to punish the people, Hassan said, his voice low and grim. He wants them to blame me for his revenge. Amina gripped his arm, fear flooding her eyes. Hassan, you can't face him alone again. He'll come with dozens. You'll die. Hassan looked at her, then at his children, and finally at Imran. Then I won't face him alone. This time, the whole neighborhood must rise. If we want to protect our families, we must stand together. The next day, word spread like wildfire. Hassan gathered the people in the square, his voice carrying above the fearful murmurs. Brothers, sisters, Rashid is coming. Not for me this time, but for all of us. He means to burn this marketplace, to destroy what little we have left. And he thinks you will cower, that you will let him take it because you are afraid. But I ask you, are you afraid? The crowd shifted uneasily. Some nodded, others looked down. A silence hung heavy. Then Hassan's voice thundered, breaking the stillness. Fear is what he wants. Fear is his weapon. But together, we are stronger than fear. Last night, he tried to burn my home. He failed, because you stood with me. Tonight, if we stand together, he cannot win. An old man raised his stick. We are tired of hiding. If he wants fire, let him taste ours. A young mother, her voice trembling but firm, cried, we will not let our children burn. One by one, voices rose, louder and louder, until the square echoed with determination. Enough! 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 Imran's camera captured it all, the moment fear turned to courage, the moment the people chose to fight. That night, Rashid prepared his men, filling barrels with oil, wrapping torches in rags. His voice dripped with venom as he barked orders. We strike at dawn. By the time the sun rises, they will be choking on smoke, begging for mercy. And Hassan will watch their hope burn with their stalls. But what Rashid didn't know was that Hassan and the people were waiting. In the quiet before dawn, the marketplace stood ready. Buckets of water lined the stalls, sand was piled in sacks, sticks and stones were gathered for weapons. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, women held their children close but refused to leave, their faces fierce with resolve. Hassan walked among them, his knife at his side, his burned arm wrapped in cloth. He looked at each face, young and old, fearful and brave, and nodded. Tonight, we protect more than a marketplace. We protect our lives, our future, our children. Amina stood behind him, her hand on Ali's shoulder, nor clutching her doll. She whispered a prayer, her eyes never leaving her husband. Then, in the distance, came the sound. The tramp of feet. The low murmur of voices. The faint glimmer of torches. Rashid was coming. The people gripped their makeshift weapons tighter. The children pressed closer to their mothers. Hassan stood at the front, his chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. Imran whispered, his camera trembling, this is it. The night everything changes. And as the first torchlight appeared in the alley, the crowd held its breath. The first torch appeared in the alley like an evil star, its flame cutting through the night. Behind it came another, and another, until the whole narrow street glowed with fire. Rashid's men marched forward, their shadows long and twisted, their weapons glinting. At their head limped Rashid, his burned leg dragging, his scarred face illuminated in orange. The torchlight made him look less like a man and more like a monster born of flame. Burn it all. Rashid's voice cut through the silence, raspy and sharp. Leave them nothing but ash. A collective gasp swept through the marketplace. Mothers pulled their children closer, men raised their sticks and tools, and women gripped buckets of water with trembling hands. Hassan stood in the front, knife gleaming faintly in the firelight. His heart pounded, but his eyes were steady. "This is our home," he shouted, his voice booming across the square. "We do not run tonight. We fight." The two sides collided. Rashid's men surged forward, torches raised high. The first was met with a bucket of water thrown straight into his face, the flame hissed and died. Another lunged with a club, only to be struck down by three men wielding sticks. Chaos erupted. Screams, shouts, the clash of wood on metal, the roar of fire. The air filled with smoke and fear. But unlike before, the people did not scatter. They fought. Hassan threw himself into the fray, slashing at a torchbearer's arm, kicking another to the ground. Around him, neighbors fought like cornered lions. A young boy hurled stones from the rooftop, striking Rashid's men in the head. Women swung pots and pans, their cries fierce. Rashid watched, his eye narrowing. "Fools," he growled. He shoved past his own men, torch in hand, and hurled it into a stall of dry cloth. Flames roared to life instantly, devouring the stall. People screamed as the fire spread. "No!" Hassan sprinted forward, seizing a bucket, dousing the flames before they could spread further. His burned arm screamed with pain, but he pushed it aside. "Don't let it spread. Keep the water ready." The battle raged on. Rashid's men set fire to another stall, but the people were ready this time. Children passed buckets in a chain, water dousing flames before they could consume the square. Every torch Rashid's men raised was met with water, sand, or sheer defiance. Still, the fight was brutal. A man fell with a cry as a chain struck his head. Another collapsed, clutching his side. Hassan fought through the press of bodies, his knife flashing, his breaths coming hard and fast. Through the chaos, Rashid's eye found Hassan. Their gazes locked across the square, two men bound by hatred and fate. "This ends with you," Rashid bellowed, his voice raw with fury. Hassan shouted back, his voice carrying above the din, "Then come and finish it." Rashid roared, shoving his way through the melee, torch in one hand, blade in the other. He moved like a wounded beast, but every swing was deadly, every step fueled by rage. Men scattered before him, unwilling to face the scarred monster. Hassan pushed through his own side, his knife clenched tight. The crowd seemed to fade around them, as if the entire battle narrowed to this single moment. When they met, it was like fire colliding with stone. Rashid swung his torch, the flames slicing the air. Hassan ducked, slashing his knife across Rashid's arm. Blood sprayed, but Rashid didn't falter. He rammed his shoulder into Hassan, sending him sprawling. The torch hovered above Hassan's face, the heat searing his skin. Rashid's voice was a guttural snarl. "I'll burn your eyes first, then your children." With a desperate cry, Hassan twisted, kicking Rashid's burned leg. Rashid howled, stumbling. Hassan surged up, grabbing the torch. The two men struggled, fire flickering dangerously close to both their faces. The crowd screamed around them, buckets sloshed, fists flew, but in that moment, the square's fate hung on which man would control the flame. Finally, Hassan wrenched the torch free and hurled it into a puddle. Steam hissed. The flame died. Rashid, enraged, slashed his blade wildly, cutting Hassan's shoulder. Blood soaked his shirt, but Hassan didn't retreat. He drove forward, his knife plunging toward Rashid. Rashid twisted just in time, the blade slashed across his chest, deep but not fatal. He staggered, his scarred grin twisting into madness. "You can cut me 100 times, Hassan, but I don't die. Fire doesn't die." He turned, grabbing another torch from one of his men. With a roar, he hurled it at the largest stall in the square, the one stacked high with wood and cloth. The flame caught instantly, exploding upward. The crowd screamed in horror as the fire leapt toward the sky. The people panicked, buckets flying, sand spilling. Hassan's voice cut through the chaos. "Don't run! Together, douse it!" Men and women rushed forward, water splashing, sand thrown, blankets beating down the flames. For every spark Rashid lit, 10 hands fought to smother it. The fire clawed and hissed, but the people refused to yield. For the first time, Rashid saw his greatest weapon failing. Fear no longer controlled them. They were stronger than his flames. His eye widened, rage twisting into desperation. He screamed, "Kill them all. If fire won't break them, blood will." His men hesitated, beaten down, demoralized. Some dropped their weapons, others fled into the alleys. The mob that had once ruled with terror was crumbling. But Rashid stood his ground, bloodied and raging. He faced Hassan again, their breaths ragged, bodies battered. "You can't stop me," Rashid rasped. "Even if you kill me, my name will haunt you. Your children will grow up in fear of me." Hassan's hand tightened around his knife. His voice shook, but not with fear, with resolve. "Then tonight, your name ends." They lunged at each other once more, knives flashing, fists striking, blood mixing with smoke and sweat. The crowd circled around them, holding their breath, knowing this was the battle that would decide everything. Amina clutched Ali and Noor, tears streaming down her face as she whispered prayers. Imran's camera shook, capturing every moment, his own voice breaking. "The world is watching, Hassan, don't fall now." The two men clashed in the heart of the burning square, locked in a struggle that felt larger than life, hope against despair, courage against cruelty, light against fire. And as the battle raged, one question hung heavy in the smoky air. The fire's glow painted the marketplace in shades of orange and black. Smoke curled into the night sky, carrying the cries of battle with it. Around the edges of the square, Rashid's men had scattered, their courage shattered by the people's stand. Buckets of water still splashed over flames, neighbors still fought with sticks and stones, but all eyes were fixed on the center. There, Hassan and Rashid clashed like two forces of nature. Blood dripped from Hassan's shoulder, staining his torn shirt. His arm burned with every movement, but he pressed forward, knife flashing. Rashid's chest was slashed, his burned face twisted into something monstrous, his one good eye blazing with hatred. Every strike he threw carried the weight of obsession, of years of cruelty and control now being threatened. "You should have stayed small, Hassan," Rashid snarled, swinging his blade. "A shopkeeper. A nobody. But you thought you could rise against me." Hassan blocked the strike with his forearm, the cut tearing flesh, and shoved Rashid back with raw force. His voice was hoarse, but strong. "I didn't rise for myself. I rose for them. For my children. For all of us who were too afraid to stand." The crowd roared, their courage feeding him. Rashid's face darkened with rage. They circled each other, smoke and fire swirling around them. Rashid's limp dragged at his steps, but he compensated with wild ferocity, lunging with sudden bursts of violence. Hassan fought with precision, every strike fueled not by anger but by determination. At one moment, Rashid feinted left, then slashed across Hassan's ribs. Blood gushed, and Hassan staggered, his knees almost buckling. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Amina cried out, "Hassan!" Rashid raised his blade high, his scarred mouth twisting into a grin. "Now you die in front of them." But Hassan, gritting his teeth through the pain, surged forward, tackling Rashid to the ground. The two rolled in the dirt, knives scraping, fists pounding. Sparks from the nearby flames rained over them as if the fire itself was judging their fight. Pinned beneath Rashid's weight, Hassan struggled, the knife pressing dangerously close to his throat. Rashid's voice dripped with venom. "I'll carve your name into ash, and your children will scream my name forever." Hassan's vision blurred, strength draining from his wounds. But then he saw her, Amina, clutching Ali and Noor, her tear-streaked face glowing in the firelight. She whispered his name, broken but full of faith. That faith lit something inside him. A final spark. With a roar, Hassan twisted his body, wrenching Rashid's burned leg. Rashid howled in agony, loosening his grip. Hassan shoved upward, slamming his head into Rashid's scarred face. Blood sprayed, and Rashid reeled. Seizing the moment, Hassan forced himself up, grabbing his knife again. His body shook, but his eyes burned with fire. The crowd closed in, chanting his name. "Hassan! Hassan!" Their voices rose like thunder, carrying him, pushing him beyond his limits. Rashid staggered to his feet, his grin now a mask of blood and fury. "You think they'll save you? They'll forget you when you're gone. But me? My fire will live forever." Hassan pointed his blade at him, his voice raw but unshakable. Your fire ends tonight. They charged. The clash was brutal, primal. Steel against steel, fist against flesh. Each strike echoed like a drumbeat of destiny. Hassan's knife cut Rashid's arm, Rashid's blade tore across Hassan's side. Both men were bleeding, both trembling, yet neither yielded. Then came the final moment. Rashid raised his blade high, screaming in rage. Hassan, with the last of his strength, lunged low, driving his knife into Rashid's stomach. The world seemed to freeze. Rashid's eye widened in shock, his blade dropping from his hand. He staggered back, clutching the wound, blood seeping through his fingers. The crowd gasped, silence falling heavy over the square. Rashid's knees buckled, but he forced himself upright, his breath ragged. His voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried. You can't kill fire. Hassan stepped closer, his knife still in hand, his face streaked with blood and sweat. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Fire dies when the people refuse to feed it. And tonight, no one here will feed you again. With that, Rashid collapsed to the ground, the torch rolling from his limp hand, its flame sputtering out in the dirt. For a moment, the square was silent. No sound but the crackle of dying flames, the drip of blood, the ragged breaths of Hassan. Then the crowd erupted. Cheers, sobs, cries of triumph. Men dropped their weapons, women clutched their children, neighbors embraced. The chant rose again, louder, unstoppable. Hassan! 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 Imran's camera shook as tears blurred his vision. His voice cracked as he whispered, "The monster is gone. The people are free." Amina rushed forward, throwing her arms around Hassan, sobbing into his chest. Ali clung to his father's leg, Noor buried her face in his side. Hassan, trembling, wrapped his arms around them, his knife finally slipping from his fingers. But even in victory, the scars remained. The square was charred, stalls destroyed, people wounded. Hassan himself could barely stand, his body broken and bleeding. And though Rashid lay still, lifeless in the dirt, his shadow loomed in their minds. Because monsters like Rashid didn't just die, they left echoes of fear, of memory, of pain. Still, as Hassan looked around at his neighbors, he saw something else. Hope. Strength. Unity. For the first time, the people had fought together, and they had won. That night, under the fading smoke and rising dawn, the people gathered around Hassan. He sat on a broken crate, exhausted, his wounds bandaged by trembling but caring hands. An old man spoke, his voice filled with reverence. You did what no one else dared. You broke the chain of fear. A woman added, holding her child close, you gave us our lives back. Hassan shook his head weakly. No. We did it together. Rashid ruled us because we were afraid. Tonight, we chose courage. That is why we won. The crowd murmured, nodding, their eyes shining with pride. But deep inside, Hassan knew one more question lingered, heavy and unresolved. Dawn broke over the village, soft golden light spilling across the blackened remains of the marketplace. The flames had died, the smoke had thinned, but the memory of the night's battle still clung heavy in the air. Ash coated the ground, the smell of char and blood lingered, and yet there was something new. The cries of fear were gone, replaced by murmurs of rebuilding, voices trembling not with terror, but with resolve. Hassan stood in the square, swaying slightly as Amina held his arm. His body was battered, wrapped in rough bandages, but his eyes remained steady. The people gathered around him in silence, waiting. Children peeked from behind their mothers' skirts, men bowed their heads, women clutched hands. Rashid's lifeless body had already been taken away, buried without ceremony outside the village walls. The ground where he fell was still stained red, but already flowers had been laid there, not for him, but for those he had destroyed. Imran stepped forward, the camera still hanging at his side, his face pale from exhaustion. His voice trembled as he addressed the crowd. Last night, the world saw what happened here. They saw your courage. They saw Rashid fall. This is not just a story for us, it will echo far beyond these walls. The people nodded, murmurs of pride mixed with uncertainty. An old woman raised her voice, her back bent with years of struggle. We are free now, but what comes next?
Rashid is gone, but his men may return. Others may try to take his place. The crowd fell silent, her words sinking deep into their hearts. Hassan looked around at their faces once marked by fear, now flickering with hope, yet shadowed by doubt. He drew a deep, pained breath, then spoke, his voice carrying over the still morning. Rashid ruled because we let him. Not with our hearts, but with our silence. He thrived on our fear. But yesterday proved something, that together, we are stronger than any tyrant.
His men may come back, yes.
Others may try to fill his place. But if we stand united, if we protect one another, no man can enslave us again. A ripple of agreement swept the crowd.
A man called out, "We will not be silent again." Another added, "We will rebuild together." Hassan's eyes softened.
This marketplace burned, but fire does not destroy everything. It also clears the ground for something new to grow. What rises from this ash will be ours, not Rashid's, not any man's.
Ours.
The day unfolded with tireless work. Neighbors carried water to cool the charred ground, children gathered unbroken bricks, women stitched wounds and cooked bread for the weary. For the first time, the village was alive with unity, each person contributing, no one left to suffer alone. Hassan, though weakened, helped where he could. He lifted beams with one good arm, tied ropes, carried buckets. Ali and Noor followed him, their small hands busy passing nails and holding wood. Amina worked beside other women, her laughter, though faint, breaking through the heavy silence. Imran documented it all, his camera capturing not despair but rebirth. The story does not end with victory, he whispered into his recorder. It begins here, in the hands of the people who choose to rise from ruin. That night, under the stars, the village gathered again. A fire was lit, not of destruction, but of warmth. Families sat close, sharing food, telling stories. Children who had hidden in fear now laughed openly, chasing one another around the circle. An elder stood, lifting his hand for silence. His eyes glistened as he spoke. For years, we bent under Rashid's shadow. For years, we forgot our own strength. Tonight, we honor not only Hassan, who stood when none dared, but every one of us who chose courage. He paused, his voice breaking.
May we never return to silence again.
The people cheered, clapping, shouting their agreement.
Amina leaned close to Hassan, her voice low. You gave them back their voice. Do you see what you've done?
Hassan shook his head softly.
No. I reminded them of what was already inside them. They only needed to believe. Amina smiled, tears in her eyes. And you gave them that belief.
But even as joy swelled, shadows remained. Some men worried about Rashid's allies, about revenge.
Others questioned whether freedom would bring peace or chaos.
The wounds of years of oppression could not heal overnight. Late into the night, Hassan walked alone to the edge of the square, his thoughts heavy. He looked at the place where Rashid had fallen, the soil still dark. His chest tightened, not with regret, but with the weight of what it meant. To kill a tyrant was not only to end a man, but to begin a responsibility.
Imran approached quietly, camera at his side.
You're thinking of what comes after.
Hassan nodded.
Killing Rashid was easier than living without him.
Freedom is harder.
It asks us to stay awake, to guard one another, to fight not just enemies but our own fear. Imran studied him for a long moment. Then he said, softly, that's why your story will matter.
Because it doesn't end with a blade, it begins with what people do when the blade is laid down. Weeks passed.
Slowly, the marketplace was rebuilt.
New stalls rose, stronger and brighter than before. Walls were painted with colors, children's laughter filled the air.
Where once Rashid's men had stood, the people now held guard, not as oppressors but as protectors of their own. Ali and Noor returned to school, their eyes brighter, their steps lighter. Amina reopened the shop with Hassan, its shelves slowly filling again. Neighbors brought gifts of grain, cloth, and coins, saying, "You gave us back more than a shop.
You gave us back our lives." Hassan never claimed the title of leader, never demanded authority.
He remained what he had always been, a shopkeeper, a father, a man who chose to stand when no one else would. And because of that, his voice carried more weight than any tyrant's roar ever could. One evening, as the sun set and the square buzzed with life, a group of travelers arrived, men and women from other villages, drawn by the story Imran had shared. They came with questions, with hope in their eyes.
Is it true, one asked, that Rashid has fallen?
Yes, Hassan answered, his voice steady. But not by my hand alone. By the hands of all who chose courage. The travelers nodded, their faces breaking into smiles.
Then perhaps we can do the same.
And so, the story began to spread, not just through Imran's recordings, but through the footsteps of those who carried it from place to place. A story of fire and fear, but also of unity, of a man who stood and reminded others of their strength. On the anniversary of Rashid's fall, the people gathered once more in the square. The rebuilt marketplace gleamed with lanterns, the air alive with music and laughter. Hassan stood with his family, holding Amina's hand, Ali and Noor at his side.
An elder addressed the crowd.
We remember the night of fire, not for its pain, but for the courage it awakened. Let this day always remind us that freedom is not given, it is taken, and it must be guarded. The people cheered, lifting their voices into the night. Children danced, drums beat, lanterns floated into the sky like stars. Hassan looked up at the glowing lights, his heart swelling.
He whispered to Amina, "Do you see them? They're not afraid anymore."
She squeezed his hand. Because you showed them how to be brave. Hassan shook his head gently, his eyes fixed on the lanterns.
No. Because they finally believed they could be.
The story ended not with a man's triumph, but with a people's rebirth. Hassan had not become a hero in his own eyes, but in theirs, because he gave them what no tyrant ever could, the strength to see themselves as free. And so the moral stood clear, etched into every heart. No fire of cruelty can burn forever when people choose to stand together. Tyranny thrives on silence, but freedom grows when even the smallest voice dares to speak.
The monster was gone. The people were free.
And their courage would echo for generations.